namna hiyo, tufanye kazi na mimi nawashukuru viongozi wengi ambao wamekubali tushirikiane. Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga amekubali ya kwamba tuweke taifa letu la Kenya mbele. Viongozi wengine wengi hawa wakiwemo wabunge hawa ndugu zangu, mbali na mipaka ya chama tumekubaliana we must transform this nation together. Amana magani jameni. So we must work together.
Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja has also continued his accusations against former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua following divisive politics. In a statement that has been reinforced or supported by Makadara MP George Aladwa, who says ODM will support the president for a second term.
Wakati niliteua mawaziri, nilikuambia boss, Nairobi lazima nikae na watu wote. Ule mkabila akaanza kunipiga. Sieleanza na mimi. Nikamwambia hapana, huko si ushago. Tutulete ukabila.
Hii gari imeshapita broad based. Inakaribia 2027. Na gari kijaa utaingia. Watu waingie mapema. Hii ni kama safina. Watu walikuwa wanaingia ngapi? Tuingie mapema. Mambo ya Daktari President wetu Ruto si mambo ya broad based, ni 10 bila break. So wewe unafikiria Alado akiwa MP atutakuja tu kunishinda namna hiyo? Kama yangu ndio MP na yake je, atutamshinda tu, amke umshinde. Waacheni bana hiyo maneno, tusibatishe maneno. Watu waache kutukana rais. Rais heshimiwe. Kama utakuwa rais, heshimu rais ule yuko.
2 people have been seriously injured following a road accident involving a truck and a trailer in a Kua area on the Katangi-Kitui Road last night. Now, according to police reports, the tractor was trying to cross the road when a truck that was speeding, the trailer that was speeding towards Kitui town hit it. The injured are being treated at Kaanga Level 3 Hospital while an investigation into the incident has begun. Now, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula has launched a scathing attack on the opposition, accusing them of orchestrating a campaign to incite Kenyans to vote out of anger and tribal animosity in the 2027 general elections. Speaking during a fundraiser at St. Augustine Catholic Church in Nakuru County, Wetangula warned that the opposition's rhetoric is designed to provoke emotional voting, a tactic he said could lead to disastrous leadership choices. The speaker cautioned that allowing emotions to dictate electoral decisions could open the door for unqualified leaders and plunge the country back into political instability. Wetangula also took aim at tribal politics, reiterating his long-standing call for national unity and peaceful coexistence. That's the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Waliletea fujo Moi mpaka wakapata cooperation. Wakakuja wakasumbua Kibaki mpaka wakachukua nusu mkate. Wamekuja wakazungusha Uhuru hapo mpaka wakaenda na handshake, program yetu ikapotea, BBI ikaendelea, tukazama, tukaingia kwa madeni. Sasa mimi nimewaambia, hii serikali hii, mimi nawaambia hii serikali ni ya mahasla. Hakuna nusu mkate, hakuna handshake, hakuna hiyo borojo.
Jana nimeona wale wazee tulishinda. Ati hiyo mzee akisema ati he will not be coerced or intimidated to joining our government. Wewe mzee sikia. We have no business within our government. Hatuna haja na hatugojei wewe. We are not looking for you and we have no time. Stop saying that people can force you to come to this government. Forget about being forced or coerced. We are not interested because sisi tuko na kazi ya kufanya.
Kama kuna mtu ako na namba ya William Ruto, arekodi hii video mtumie. Maisha yangu tangu nizaliwe sijawahi kuona mtu muongo, mfisadi, baradhuli, dhamdhabina kama William Samoei Ruto.
Mimi Hassan Joho nikitaka kuongea, mimi I don't even dream of engaging with them. Ati huyu akitaka aje aongee sio na mimi niongee na Ruto nini? Mimi nikamtafute atanipa nini? Wilbaro. I wonder. Nilipeleka Wilbaro mimi la kimtaani la kucheza nalo zamani.
We have a choice to reject over 60% of these names or give President Ruto his skunk. Apart from a few individuals who are not even more than 8, the rest are incompetent, unqualified, have integrity issues, are people who cannot deliver this country from where it is to the next level that we want the country to move in.
A few moments later.
Now forwarded the name of John Mbadi Ngongo to the Ministry of National Treasury and Economic Planning. The Honorable Hassan Ali Joho, Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Good morning. It's the 9th of June already, almost into half the month. And here we are. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Ndu. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Salam, mashkoor. How was your weekend?
My weekend was okay, but I cannot hear you, and I don't know who is doing something where they shouldn't. Try again.
You still can't hear me?
Very good.
Now
Thank
you can
you very
hear
much.
me. Nice.
Uko salama?
Nashukuru. Weekend ilikuwaje?
I'm trying to remember. Today's Monday. So there was Friday, but we were here.
Yes.
And then there was Saturday, and then there was Sunday. It was okay, more or less.
It was okay, no?
Yeah, did the business more or less. Yeah. Doing all right.
Mine was good. It was my dad's birthday over the weekend, so yeah.
Yay!
My baba.
Oh, well done. Are you going to tell us how old Daddy is?
Dad is turning 64, just turned 64.
How about that? Well, happy birthday, Baba Aseto. Yeah, you've done a good job with this young man over here.
Yo, Daddy, you did a good job.
And we say so.
Yeah. Otherwise?
Mimi niko salama. I'm doing okay, and I try every day, but it's just that everything we get served up every now and then is just sometimes difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
But we somehow need to get through it. Mr. Okari is on his way. He'll be here in a short while. You know how it is. 8 months old, waking you up in the middle of the night. But he'll join us in a little bit. So we can do Dennis and Dennis. Dennis squared and Ndu. It sounds like something that you would order at a coffee shop.
A coffee shop. Yeah.
But here we are anyway. And so hope you guys are doing okay. Hi, cousins. Hi, cousins.
Kuzo kofiti.
Sisi ni makuzo.
Sisi ni makuzo. Hii mambo ingine achana nayo. Sisi ni makuzo. You gotta love Kenya, man.
We are family. I got all my cousins with me. Hey. There's nothing you can't turn into a song, I'm telling you.
Nakwambia Kenya is one big family and friends. You know the movie, the comedy? Yeah? Family and friends. Yes.
This is it.
Hey.
My goodness, just when you thought that you couldn't get something, every time there's always something. You got to give it up to Ricky.
You got to give it up, yeah.
Things that we didn't think we would hear, but we hear them anyway. And then because of that, people are saying, no, we are not cousins, we are in-laws. For goodness sake. Anyway, this is fun part of the conversations that we'll be having today, so let's get into it, shall we? This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. A very good morning to you, and as you're clicking into the room today, do it and tell us where you're tuned in from, and say a very good morning to us. As you're getting into the night, depending on what part of the world you are in, thank you for taking that last nod with us. And as you wake up to your strong coffee, we're in The Situation Room today having those conversations that matter. So how about I let you know what some of those are going to be, right? So a number of things have been happening, and sometimes difficult to deal with here and there, but we must deal with them all the same. I will tell you that how we're going to end our conversations this morning. We'll have a conversation at 9 a.m. with Ndu Okoh. She's an education expert and the director of Tunza Mtoto Coalition. We've had her here before, but truth be told, the issues that we're seeing in the education sector, we would be doing a great injustice and disservice if we do not continue to talk about them. She's going to join us. We're going to talk about free, but at what cost? Rethinking Kenya's education revolution. Those are some of the conversations that we will be having this morning. That's at 9 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, we will be talking about retirement. We'll be talking about retirement with Pauline Gathuri, who's a senior manager at Life Insurance Business Association of Kenya Insurers. She joins us at 8 o'clock, and we'll be talking about retirement planning and why it is important. We think about retirement when you get past a certain age, but hey, perhaps necessary to talk about it even now. And so we'll be doing that at 8. And then we start things off at 7 o'clock with Waja Maina. She's the founder of the Hummingbird Center and a member of Okoh Uchumi Campaign. Budget 2025. We said we will be talking about the budget and all sorts of things relating to it before CS Badi stands on the steps of Harambe. Is it not Harambe House? It is Harambe House, Abby. And we'll be looking at whether the hustler economy is still a priority. Well, we heard the member of parliament for Kapsaret the other day telling us that the examples of things that he did are hustler, bottom up.
Yeah.
So we'll have that conversation at 7 o'clock. And that's how we'll start things this morning. I feel like I'm sunken, like I'm down. Anyway. Dennis Okari, good morning.
Good morning, my fellow Kenyans.
Kuzo,
my fellow Kenyans.
You have to greet us properly. You don't know there's a new order. We are family.
Yeah.
Kuzo is how?
Kuzo is
otherwise Kuzo.
Sisi ni makuzo.
Sisi ni makuzo.
It's almost like a threat. Not welcome.
I gotta love Kenya.
It's like a forced salam.
I'm telling you. Sisi ni makuzo.
When ni kuzo.
Sindio.
Jaribu kusema kitu ingine.
There's a well?
Not bad.
Okay.
Tulikuwa tumesalimiana. Then we told them why you are late. So don't even worry, we have just embarrassed you properly. Yeah.
I didn't tell you why.
But it doesn't matter.
Let me just say traffic.
Okay, so you see, traffic at 5:30, but it's okay. And so we're getting into it this morning. Where? Which country are we in? Do you know where we are?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We just came closer home.
Voila.
East Africa region.
Okay. So
Uganda. Museveni.
I
Sebo.
was thinking the other country. I was like, why?
The other country.
Too soon.
Coming soon. Najua. Coming soon to theaters near you. But yeah, we're in Uganda. And Uganda is one country pretty much that is considered to be the breadbasket of the region. You know, they enjoy good rains, but that notwithstanding, their political standing is something that has always created conversations in the region and pretty much across the world. And right now, with the Museveni and the age, there is the conversation on is the son going to be taking over? Kainerugaba, Muhoozi is the question that is ongoing. But remember, the wife as well is a cabinet minister for education.
For education, yep.
Yes, yeah. And our proverb today: a person who has not traveled thinks his mother is the best cook. A person who has not traveled thinks his mother is the best cook.
Yeah. I guess, okay, for me, you just have to you have to open your mind and open your horizons. You have to be able to taste from different pots, essentially, and see that there could be something better outside of the thing that you know. I remember a friend of mine once said, you know, the world is not you and you are not the world. There's so many other things happening outside of your little, you know, circle, your 6x6. So you can get to know that there's more outside of you, I guess.
Yeah.
Although Mrs. Okoh's food is the best, sorry.
What comes to my mind is, repeat it again, your mother?
A person who has not traveled thinks his mother is the best cook.
You know, a mother's dish is like a standard that is set in the house. So for me, what it means is if you don't get out of your home or your comfort zone, you will never know what else is out there.
Yeah.
You will imagine or assume what is your mother's standard is the standard out there. So just travel the world, see what else is there.
Yeah.
Set new standards.
Yeah. I look at it in terms of if you stay home, the experiences and familiarity is all you know. There is nothing else that pricks your mind outside that confinement and the setting that you're in. But once you get out, you meet different people who impact you in a different way. I'd give you, for example, my mother never cooked biryani. She never did, you know, but traveling outside, biryani is a good dish nowadays, you know. So if I just stuck to what my mom cooks good chapatis. Explains why I love chapatis, but yeah, biryani is an additional thing. So if I hadn't gotten outside that space, how would I ever known how biryani tastes and the difference? You know, so yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of chapati, is there anyone who doesn't like chapati?
Do you like chapati?
Of course I do.
Okay.
Oh, I love my wife's chapatis. They are the best. Like the best.
Are you still talking about chapati?
Yeah.
Yes, Kuzo.
Oh, okay.
Do you know someone? Do you know a man who doesn't love chapati, Ndu?
I don't know that I've had conversations about chapati with many a man, but I would assume, I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody who said, well, I hate chapatis. That's true. I would have to say also me coming, I mean, it's not food that we have, but yeah, when I came here, I really liked it. Interestingly enough, the chapatis that the Asians make are sweet chapati. And it's actually, so Kenyans have, this is interesting because there's a connection to this proverb. So Kenyans have actually taken this chapati, which you have roti.
Roti, yes.
And then you have the chapati, which they actually put sugar in.
Yeah.
And so Kenyans have taken it and adapted it to the, you know, just the flour and the salt and the whatever. Yeah. So there's quite a large Asian community around where we were. And, well, that's not true. Maybe a few people that I met. And so the first chapati I had was with sugar, right? And then when I came here, then there was this thing and it was fantastic.
See?
Yeah. So anyway. Exactly. Exactly. Very true. Very true. Okay, so let's say hello to you guys. We know that you're tuning into my live streams. See, these glasses today are just disturbing me. I think I'll just operate without them if I can, but then I'm absolutely blind as a bat without them. But we keep it moving somehow. Let's say hello to you guys this morning. You're tuned in from wherever you're tuned in from. Tell us where that is. And We'll say hi. Our live streams, YouTube, Facebook, and on X. Hello to our friends tuning in on Facebook this morning, and we'll soon be joined by our friends on KTN. My cousins, Cyprian Kambuni, we see you. Yes, I think that's going to be the greeting for the next God knows how long. Don Salbo says we have a tight and dangerous tariff war escalated by the Trump sim trade policies. Is that what you meant to say? How are you, Ndu Okoh? The death of Albert, another one. I know, it's going to be on the headline this morning, and that's what I was saying. I feel kind of sad because you don't have to take too deep a stab to find things that are just going belly up. Kisa Daniel is tuned in. Makuzo, hi. Hi. Robert Mbogo says, good morning from Mombasa. Jose Mahinda is tuned in from this morning and tuned in and says, good morning, Team Spice. Hope you're doing well. It's been a long time, but I'm back now. Yes, where have you been, Jose? Hope you're doing well. Kuzurura Bila Break, Cyprian Kambuni. And Gora says, Chamge, my beautiful people tuned in from the beautiful city of Nairobi. Happy New Week to you too, sister. Jackson says, good morning. The irony is individuals or political figures donating millions while the government claims it lacks funds for free education cuts to the heart of Kenya's political and fiscal priorities. I cried on Friday night.
What happened?
Watching that thing. Where people are just... Yeah. You could even tell that some of the people who are coming to donate this money were struggling.
Yeah.
But it meant that they had to come and give this money so that somebody could save face, show something. And I thought to myself, wow, if these vehicles and this whatever is actually going towards economic development, then fantastic. But then in this country, we say that there's no money to get certain things done. But then we saw this, splash of money. And I don't know. Anyway, Eric Awar says, good morning. Zach, okay, says, hi, cousins. 10,000 lakes here, tuning from Minnesota. Yes, there's no guarantee of freedom after speech, or rather, after speech in our lovely country. It's true. Desmond Ochi says, good morning, cousins. I like Hika's choice of delivery abroad. Anyway, we are waiting the Satan from hell to appear in Western. Who is that? It's interesting that she said that, you know what, you guys are my juniors. How did you expect that I was going to deliver a baby and I'd be on the table and it's you guys who are delivering me of the baby? As though in the moment, at that point, when you're thinking about delivering the baby, do you I am speaking from experience.
Yeah.
You do not care who it is you want to be delivered of the baby. So for her to have that afterthought, we could have many thoughts, sayings about that. But honestly, the people who tell some of these people to open their mouths and speak need to either be fired or censured. And I said it on period. Hello, Princess Ndu Okoh, Dennis, Lydiah. When you hear the news and budget proposal and hear Ruto talking, one wonders if it's the same nation being talked about. Leo, I hear you, man. Wakire from Utawala says, OG Beeper. Jimmy Monode is tuned in this morning and says, I'm devastated about the death of Albert. It's very sad. It is very, very sad. Kenneth Jumba is tuned in this morning, says, good morning, team. Man P says, good morning, cousins. Tuned in from Austin, Texas. I'm telling you, I'm loving the way the family is growing. Eugene Odhiambo says, good morning, Team Spice. Good morning, cousins listening in from Kikuyu. A new day, a new week, new family. Wishing all Spice FM cousins countrywide a peaceful, productive week ahead. Oyaore Tower. How painful can it get when a father hands over his son to DCI and gets his body back?
Oh, no.
This is what Robinson Kisero was asking. What value do we put on human lives? My question 2025. How can police investigate themselves? The gloves are off, indeed. Good morning, team. Politics and more politics. Distraction from real issues. We need our country back. We need to hear something different. We are fatigued. Okay. It would appear as though we are. Margaret Wanjohi says, good morning, Team Spice. Tuning from Houston. Glad to be here. Let's continue the great conversations. Asante. Karanja is also greeting his family. Sir George Gashoiri says, good morning, everybody. Time for spice and coffee. I love that. And I think we should put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
The Situation Room. Spice and coffee. Or something, How's that there for an ad? Young Jedi says, good morning, Team Spice. I trust everyone is doing great. Looking forward to another week of insightful conversations. Asante Sana for the great work you are doing. Thank you so much. Good morning, all from Kabarak in Nakuru, says Peter Chemorsoy. Pan-African Kenya says, good morning from Nairobi. Good morning to ya. Yes, tuko hapo leo, Young Jedi. Dennis Dianga says, hello, cousin. Sad week, all our tears in the family of Ojwang. I know. Justice for Albert Ojwang, Tuflani says, indeed. Atticus now, we see you. Good morning. Soldier Boy tuning in from Atlanta. Here's for some violence. Where? What are you talking about? Good morning, live from Utsomwi. Utsunomiya in Japan. Harun Kimavi. Wow, that's a great place. Karao wameua Albert Odrang because of fragile egos. Oi. Well. Bwangi Juma says, good morning. My Prince, hi online cousins. Hope everyone is fine and safe. We are living in a crazy world. I know. Pan-African, is it too early for Reject Finance Bill 2025? You need to read it, man. Eric Awar, yes, I see you, brother. Good morning. Tuning from Culture says Rahim Tula. Omar Stanley Ngashe says, new motorcycles for hire, launch and return. Okay. Market Wajohi, good morning to you. That saying is also in my place of origin. Which saying, sis? Which one? Good morning to you, Spice, says Olive Shege. Taking a moment to say, I wanted to say that you guys are doing a great job with your morning conversations. It's always nice to tune in and hear you break down these tough conversations. Thank you, my sister, for being here every day. In Mozambique, they say if you do not travel, you will marry your sister. It's very true. Go see the world. Imagine, just go. Even if you're going to town, just get out. Go, Kitengela. Go outside. It's true. Farouk Tough, we see you. Good morning. Better fix the nation now. Okay. Peter Karaoke, we see you. We're glad that you're here. So thank you very much. Michael Olande says, good morning, tuning from Kigali. Ann Gore, we will tell him. Morris Andati says, we judge and engage based on what we know or what we are exposed to. Paulo Chen, good morning. My take says, Kumi Bila breaks, sawa sawa. Damson Langat says, good morning. Jimmy Weka says, also here. Kimathi Nkrumah, okay, we see you, good morning. Let's talk. Noor Abdullah says, good morning. Our Defender says, hi, Makuzo. Mary Kenya says, good morning. Julius is also tuned in. Wow, so many people in the room this morning. Patrick Obondo, Mary Kimia, Andrew Chira, we see you all. Thomas Omosa. Good morning, everybody. We'll take it all in stride as we get into things this morning. Karibu, and thank you for joining us every morning as you do. All right, guys, let's real quick get into the headlines this morning. If I didn't get to you, we can see you guys getting into the room. So let's have these conversations and let's talk about things that matter as we focus on the issues this morning, shall we? On the bold newspaper, Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, killed by police is the headline. Police gave a laughable explanation in a fruitless cover-up after a youthful Kenyan died in their hands hours after arresting him in Homa Bay and transporting him to Nairobi. And as inconsistencies emerged between their statement and witness accounts, the reason for the arrest, said to be an insulting tweet against their boss, revealed a growing pattern that points to existence of a bloodthirsty unit ready to kill for the state in continuing frenzy of abuse of Kenyans. Who will save Kenyans? And that's the question. Other headlines making it onto The Standard this morning. From vision to vultures, UON's 18 billion shilling STEM project in turmoil. What began as a grand dream to elevate STEM training through a 3.6 billion shilling French-backed centre at the University of Nairobi is now mired in vicious boardroom wars, stalled timelines, and leadership turmoil. Sad. But yeah. Desperate patients turn to the web for life-saving treatment. Widows, son of late MPs, decline executive role in 1 billion shilling estate row. And we're still seeing more stories of varsity stuck. Death of a blogger in custody raises questions over police transparency. We'll look into the details of those as we go along. Dennis?
So we go to the Daily Nation. Now, Ruto hits 1,000 days, and with that, the economy, GDP growth. Kenya's GDP grew by 4.8% in 2022 and dropped to 4.7% in 2024. Now, inflation was 7.6% in 2022. Now it is 7.7% in 2023. As of May 2025, inflation had decreased to 3.8%. We also have conversations around health and universal health coverage. 8,571 UHC workers hired by the Ministry of Health in 2020. They earn a salary of 50,000 shillings monthly. And 22 million Kenyans who had registered for SHA by May 13th, 2025, 1.2 million have had their bills paid, with claims amounting to 45 billion shillings. And we also have more hospitals targeted in organ probe. Now, remember the question with what hospital was that again? Medhill?
Yeah.
Now, here we have more hospitals being targeted. House team is investigating Medhill Hospital could cast the net wider following claim that other facilities were part of a network that facilitated controversial kidney transplant. So while we thought that it's just Medhill, seems like it's a problem in very many other hospitals. And police officers lament over what again? Unpaid allowances. The security sector in the country, people in charge of maintaining law and order. Some police officers hired by the Kenya National Examinations Council last year to secure examinations have not been paid 6 months later. We are approaching that time when students will again be going for exams, and we'll need these same police officers to protect and offer security during that process. They've not been paid. What guarantee do we have that they will go to secure the exam centers and the exam itself?
We don't.
We don't. And the grade 9 learners begin selecting career paths starting today. Head teachers, parents and guardians will assist approximately 1.2 million grade 9 learners in picking their career pathways ahead of their transition to grade 10 next year. Yes, Deno.
I'll still stuck to some story on the Standard on page 2. I don't know why my cousin just skipped that. You remember last week we were talking about COVID, eh?
Yeah.
And experts are raising alarm as UK reports a surge of COVID-19 variant cases. So, in the Kenyan situation, there is somebody who was interviewed and said COVID-19 has never been contained, actually. It has been circulating, though people do not get that sick. You know, so there is a report that 232,000 cases are numbers that are on the rise, with more than 24 million cases reported since 2020. So the numbers are starting to pick up again. I don't know whether Kenya we're having this conversation or any figures. We'll find out. On the Business Daily, main story, payroll taxes growth at slowest pace in a decade. This is not a shock. We knew this was going to happen at some point, and it's going to continue happening. So this signals a deepening job crisis in the country as more firms resort to temporary employment contracts and freezes on pay reviews. It's not happening.
Nope.
Yeah.
Ongeza mshande?
Z.
No. So taxes on workers' salaries, allowances and wages grew a subdued 5.4% in the 9 months to March 2025, which is the slowest growth in at least 10 years outside the pandemic period, which signals a deepening job crisis because large firms are increasingly resorting to temporary employment contracts. KRA is saying the drop was linked to the effects, and I quote, effects of ongoing restructuring by various organizations to manage operational costs. Unapenda kizungu mingi sana. We love English.
In other words,
we love English, you know. Still on the main page, there's a story there on a parliamentary committee. Now, this is interesting. So, a parliamentary committee has questioned why the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics and the Kenya Institute of Public Policy and Analysis are collectively spending more than 300 million Kenya shillings on rent annually, even as government office spaces remain vacant. I once did a story around this over why governments, some government agencies will prefer paying rent. In some of these buildings in Nairobi and Westlands and Parklands and Upper Hill, and yet you have got office spaces in government buildings. Now, still on the same page, accrued government loans to KQ rose by 3.1 billion in 2024 to hit 108.3 billion, driven by unpaid interest and principal, deepening the national carrier's dependence on its largest shareholders.
My goodness.
Okay. Story of KQ is just, you just see KQ and you know what's gonna come next.
Up and down.
Yes. So, on the inside pages, page 5, last story here. The East African Kidney Institute is seeking a parliamentary approval to activate Kenya's human body organ donor laws, which is the final step before launching the country's first national organ and tissue donation program. They're seeking that approval, straightening the laws that exist. So the legal gaps are delaying the rollout of organ and tissue donation programs in Kenya. If we are currently doing it without this, with the gaps, check. If you're doing this with the existing gaps, what's going to happen when you close the gaps?
I don't even want to think about it. My goodness. Where?
No pun intended.
Of course not. Let's look really quickly on the front page of the Star this morning. CS embodies budget to hurt farmers and school children. Okay. Wycliffe Muga has written the story there on Voices on page 16. Rather, it's an op-ed, and he's talked about the impossible task of creating employment. Difficult to do. And of course, there's that shock as suspect dies in city police cell hours after arrest in Homa Bay. Senators push to protect 11 small counties, whereas is it possible that they would fold with the boundary review, but protect them in terms of keeping them as counties. All right, we're going to take a quick look at what's happening with weather and traffic, and then we'll come back and look at these stories in a little bit more detail at 23 minutes to 7. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start the weather with SpiceFM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening with traffic this morning. A little bit of that then starting to build up as you come into the city off of Jago Road. The Thika Superhighway with quite some as you come in from Githurai, out all the way from that Roiro intersection, and then through towards Githurai, out towards Garden City, and then it's bumper to bumper through and through as you're coming in towards the CBD. So we're going to keep an eye on all of this and see what happens. As you get towards Museum Mungai Mathai Way, we're not going to see too much of that. There is some traffic starting to build on Waiyaki Way as you make your way into the city. Then on Gong Road, some traffic is coming in through towards the CBD as well, but I think we'll be fine as you get out towards Valley Road, and then into the city from Langata Road is not doing too poorly here at all. We'll keep an eye on all of this and keep it moving as best we can. We'll talk and keep things moving. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Okay, so looking into these stories, guys, this one where folks are even saying they're going to come out. A gentleman tweeted, and the story is carried on the Standard and I guess across media today, but I'll find it. Death of a blogger in custody. And unfortunately, we're seeing too many of these stories, and just when you thought that you would not see another one, this is what we've seen. Death of a blogger in custody raises questions over police transparency. The death of 31-year-old Albert Ojwang has raised serious questions over after he was arrested in Homa Bay on Saturday and later died while in police custody in Nairobi. Now, Ojwang was seized by officers from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, reportedly over allegations of publishing false information online. The latest clampdown on social media users came barely a week after a software developer, Rosen Jerry, was arrested in an alarming trend of government's intolerance on critical voices. Ojwang was transferred to Nairobi the same day and booked at Central Police Station, where he succumbed under unclear circumstances, though police claimed he died by suicide. Okay, the first thing was that he died by suicide. That's what police said. It's alleged that while in custody, he banged his head against the wall in an isolation cell, lost consciousness, and was rushed to Mbagathi, a referral hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. Now, that's what the story says. I want to read to you what the police service said in this statement that they put out, right? The first one that they put out, and they said, The National Police Service has noted reports circulating on social media regarding the death of suspect allegedly in custody at the Central Police Station. NPS confirms that Albert Omondi Ojwang was lawfully arrested by DCI detectives for false publication and placed in custody. Get this, while in custody, the suspect sustained head injuries after hitting his head against the cell wall. Police officers on duty promptly noted the injuries and rushed him to Bagavi Hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. In line with statutory requirements, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority has launched an investigation into the incident. They then gave a further statement after that, and they said, the National Police Service wishes to inform the public that following the tragic death of Mr. Albert Ojwang while in police custody at Central Police Station, do you see how the language has changed?
Yeah.
To ensure, they said that they're going to ensure a thorough, impartial and expeditious investigation by the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. And they've said that as a result of that, the police service has ordered the interdiction of the following officers with immediate effect. The officer commanding station, that's OCS, Central Police Station, the duty officer on duty during the night in question, the cell sentry on duty at the time, all officers who were on duty at the report office that night, any other officer to have been on duty or otherwise involved during the incident. The first report was that he had committed suicide. The second report was that he then banged his head against the wall. And then now we're seeing this one where they're saying, actually, hang on a minute, the death was tragic and that we're going to have to summon everybody who may have been in the vicinity at any given time to then answer questions about his death. That we have seen another death happen while, remember the two brothers, in Meru?
Yeah.
Who died, and now that trial is still ongoing at the hands of 6 police officers. And then all the other cases that we saw in between that time and now.
Brian.
Now after the inquest is happening, and now that is going for question. And then now it just was interesting to me that we saw how the language from the police service changed in a very short period of time. First of all, there are alleged reports and we don't even know what's going on. Then it was a tragic death, and then there were certain officers who've been summoned to come and answer questions. But you know what? Mm-hmm. Albert is dead.
Yep.
Albert is dead. For whatever unless there were indications as to him wanting to have taken his life or whatever would have happened to him, that we have another case like this happening in the hands of police, again, is one too many. I can't even speak properly, if you can tell. I can't.
You see, if you look at the change in language from the police officers, for me, I think where the investigation should have started is the DCI officer who picked him up. Because remember, he was picked up in Homa Bay County. How was the drive from Homa Bay County all the way to Nairobi? Why hadn't the DCI officers been summoned to give their account while they were bringing him to Nairobi? Why is the police silent on that part of the arrest? He was arrested on what exactly? Because then again, he was arrested. He was taken to Central Police Station. Was he booked in? Do we have an OB report on the same? Because then the drive to Nairobi would have informed how this individual would be put in jail. I mean, I have been to Central Police Station. Was he in an isolation cell? Was he alone? If he was together with the other inmates, what is the statement of accounts from the other inmates about his how he was behaving while in the custody? So there's a lot of information that are not being given here.
You know, I look at this story, and in a week at least, you will find there's a case, either reported or unreported anyway, whether it's in the papers or it's just somewhere on social media. There are 3 things here. So one is the arresting officer's claim. If you look at the procedure, the standard operating procedure in a police station, I'm not an officer, but I have an understanding of how it works. When you're going for a patrol, for example, and as you're doing your patrol, you arrest some people who don't have their identity cards and this and that, petty thieves. That is one thing. But when you are going to arrest somebody that is targeted, meaning you've done investigations or there is a complainant and you're going to issue, and somebody issues that arrest, and there is somebody who sends these officers to go and make the arrest, bring them back to the station, and then book them. We've all had questions on how this process is done. Constitutionally, there are issues, of course. But this, to me, is we are slowly gravitating towards where we were coming from. Remember, there was a period and a time when the police were referred to as the Kenya Police Force.
Yep.
Yes.
And in 2010, during the constitutional reform, the reason why that was changing and why people are agitating for a change from the word police force to police service is for simply making the outfit, or it was rather symbolic and practical, for reasons tied to democracy, reasons tied to human rights, reasons tied to, public trust. This is a service. These are people who are serving you. But that was, in my opinion, a very philosophical shift. We never really changed. Like I always say, it is the same person, just changing clothes. You're the same person. You're not changing your mind, you've just changed clothes. So when we look at when the Kenya Police Force and the agitation to change, there was heavy militarization. There was a lot of coercion. There were a lot of arrests. There was a lot of control, which was tied to how the colonial regime was working and operating. Now, what we are slowly seeing, we are actually breaking all those layers and going back to the militarization of using the police in a regime to do the regime's bidding.
Yep.
And so we are not just looking at people dying. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We know what happened here. We know what happened here. And the fumbling of these statements.
This back and forth nonsense.
Yes, we know what this is.
We know, yeah.
It's a case where this, snap, this has happened. We've killed this person. So let's quickly formulate a story. What exactly happened? And in formulating, you are not thinking through the lie. And people can clearly see through the lie. We know what happened here. We don't even need to overthink it. The question is, for how long? Like, Ndu, I liked what you say. You constantly said this. We're growing so tired of this. And I like the question that actually the Standard is asking at the end here. Who will save Kenyans?
Honestly.
Yeah.
Because you can say, look, where are we? That you can open your mouth today and you can say anything. And that somebody then would reserve the right to then pick you up. And while having been picked up, do you realize? Do you guys realize that there is no rule of law of protection anymore? That anything can happen to you. And I think that is the scariest of positions. That anything can be done to you. And what are we going to see later? This fumbling that you talk about, Okari.
Yeah.
The fumbling about people are going to start saying, maybe she killed herself. She took her head and banged it against the wall. And then they're going to try and figure out, okay, maybe, come on. We're not talking about rag dolls. We're talking about human beings.
Yes.
But then somebody's going to fumble about and say, IPOA, who we already know that you have defunded.
Yeah.
So we know they cannot do their job. We already know that the resources that they need to be able to do things like that. And then do you expect me to investigate and report myself? Let's just be very honest about some things here. So the fumbling about, we see that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That anybody today, can you imagine that you are not safe?
You see,
you are not.
When the man asked what the son had done, claimed his son had insulted their boss. When he asked which boss they were referring to, Sigei, the officer called Sigei, told his father to stop asking too many questions and to follow them to Mawego police station, which initially Albert had been booked into. But then again, when the son was leaving, the father managed to speak to him, and this is what he said: please ask them to put me in a position where I can breathe well because I am asthmatic. He raised that before being brought to Nairobi. Now, the father comes to Nairobi, goes to Central Police Station, asks the police to see the son. What do police tell him? Go have breakfast and come back. All this time, the son was dead.
Can you imagine? He had planned to meet his son for a meal.
Yeah.
That was the last conversation that they had. His son left him when he was walking upright. Didn't have an issue. Then you want to tell me this is the same son who decided that when he was arrested he was going to kill himself.
He was going to bang his head on the wall.
The moment we allowed, from the Gen Z protests and all that, the moment you embolden, you embolden the police in a sense that you can kill and get away with it. You can maim and get away with it. You can injure and get away with it. and all in the name of protecting the status quo. In this case, the alleged abuse on X to their boss. What is this telling? It's telling you we are slowly building a narrative around it's okay to go out as long as you are an officer and you have a crown. It's okay to go and do whatever it is that you want. Because again, this whole question of you either suspend or move officers, it still doesn't answer the question.
Yeah.
You know, the assumption is we want justice, and justice in this case means the officers in that station, they all need to be fired or suspended. It still doesn't answer the question.
It doesn't.
Because we have seen this too many times, and because we're sweeping everything under the carpet. You know, my fear is there's going to be an eruption. There's going to be an eruption. If you notice, for the first time during the protests, we saw people are so emboldened that they could stand in front of officers, speak. There was an audacity to even burn a police vehicle. There was a threat to go to even a police station. When you see people going that direction, they're tired. They've had enough. There is a point, and there's going to be a boiling point when these things just continue like this, and no one is taking responsibility, because this is a family that has lost a son, has lost a brother, has lost a family member, and it's a small voice in some village somewhere. And we might ignore this voice and say, well, it's not
me.
It's not me. This is someone somewhere else, until it happens to you. And then these pockets of all these things happening everywhere else around the country, there will be a boiling point where people will be, enough is enough. If clearly there are violations of rights in this arrest leading to the death of this young man, why should anyone follow the law?
Why?
Why should anyone follow the law? That's the question, because the people supposed to enforce the law are the ones who are breaking the same laws. So we're going to get into a culture where then I can break the law because utanifanya, utadu.
And you see, when we talk about breaking the law, the police themselves are just breaking the law, because at a central police station, Ojwang had not been booked in. So he was taken to custody, but he's not in the occurrence book, which begs the question. We all, like you say, we understand the police procedures. It was not booked in. But even as we talk about this, there's a lady I was talking to yesterday. He's neighbors with Ojwang. Ojwang has just left a young family, I think a 1-month-old baby.
Yes, yeah.
You know, a 1-month-old baby. So when you talk about the value that you place on human life, the respect and fidelity to the Constitution and the maintenance of the rule of law, the police is their responsibility to ensure that they do that. But if they are the ones who are breaking the law, as Standard asks, who will save Kenyans if the people in charge of maintaining that law and order are busy breaking that law and order? Let
me tell you, in Jamaica, there was a situation, and the crime rate in Jamaica, how it started, and also Mexico. So you're going after drug cartels, you're going after criminals, hardcore criminals. And so there was this element of when they go out, they cover themselves. They don't even wear uniforms. A vehicle just shows up, somebody's picked from the streets, you're bundled into a vehicle, you're taken to wherever it is you're being taken to. And so the culture developed to a point where now the cartels started deploying the same tactics. So you go against your enemy and you're going in a vehicle, you're hooded, you're covered, you pick somebody, and it almost became normal. People assume, oh, those are the police. That's what they do. That's a unit that was cracking down on these outfits. We come back to Kenya. You're seeing a situation where it is so easy for somebody to just be picked by the roadside, by an unmarked vehicle, get into a vehicle, and people will assume, oh, this is that unit that you keep hearing that's abducting people, or these are the officers who are arresting this person. What if we get to a situation, and I see it happening, to be honest, because you're seeing a trend. What if we get into a situation where criminal elements will decide, you know what, because these guys are breaking the law, and they can go with an unmarked car, pick somebody, and purport it's an arrest, why don't we kidnap? Why don't we just go pick anybody we want and do whatever the police are doing? How will you tell the difference? between criminal elements or criminal outfits from actually the police when they do this kind of thing. How do you tell the difference?
And it's a question we once asked, I think it was IPOA boss here, and I asked him now, when police officers come with civilian clothes, how do you tell these are police officers, and what is the standard operating procedure in Kenya, and also just the UN Convention on how police operate when they are handling arrests in terms of identifying themselves, and how important it is for police officers to just show up in police uniform, identify themselves, tell you the crime you've committed and where you're being taken. And that was a silent moment because there was no response to that. But like you're saying, yeah, we will normalize it, and before we know it, it's criminal gangs who are actually operating as police officers.
But it's normalized, and I think that's the scary thing.
Yeah.
And Stella has asked a question this morning as she's logged on and said, why wake up to such sad news? And I think, yes, that's the thing, unfortunately. And you know what? Every time we say, oh, you guys should be more positive, you should get... This is the buffet.
Mm-hmm.
This is the menu. This is what is up to be served. So we can bury our heads in the sand and not talk about that's the reality of our times, or we can discuss them and talk about how repugnant it is and that we must do better. We can decide not to talk about it and talk about flowery things if you can find them, or we can say, you know what, this is the reality and it is unacceptable.
And the troubling thing is what happened to humanity.
Thank you.
How do you kill a human being like a dog?
Thank you.
And how do we, what makes me upset and very angry is when you look at a headline like this, and you look at this is a human being. This is a person who has a family.
This is somebody's only child.
Yes. And you know what it feels like losing someone close to you. You may not understand a lot that's going on, but this is a human being. So when we casually bring up numbers, when we casually handle people, somebody tweets, it's harmless. Whatever it is they call it. If you can actually have the audacity to go and kill a human being the way you'll just slaughter a chicken, what happened to humanity? What happened to us? How cold-hearted can we be as a society?
We've lost it.
To just watch over this happening. How is somebody walking into an office this Monday morning, walking into an office, opening the newspapers and do business and go do business as usual, and there's somebody who has died, there's a father who's crying. Do even people know their curses? Do people even know?
On blood?
Blood is spilled. Blood speaks. Do even people... there's this thing of... There's a casualness of... whatever it is I will do, there are no consequences. You almost feel like there's nothing you can do to me. But people forget that you may not pay for it now. But your children will surely pay for it. And your children's children will surely pay for a father who's crying like this, who doesn't have a voice, who doesn't have a godfather somewhere, who doesn't have anyone who can give him the answers that he's looking for.
And you have to ask, what did he do? What did Albert do?
Tweeted against a police officer.
What did he do that warranted this? Not that anything does. What did he do? This was our newspaper review. These are questions that we're asking about stories that are making the headlines across the nation. But this is the one that must prick our conscience, and this is the one that we must ask questions over. We will no longer bury our heads in the sand. We will ask. And that the blood of those that has been spilled will be atoned for. It will. It's just like you're saying, it will happen. But if this is the direction that we are going, this is the direction that we are going, or that not even this is the destination.
This is where we are.
We have reached.
Yeah,
it's a problem.
Read that man's tweet. His comment: I am broken. I have worked in Okari for 20 years just for him to get a degree and support me in my old age. What did he do to be killed like that? I wish I could meet that boss because I want him to kill me too. Ojwang's father.
Wow. And that's where we are at 7 a.m.
SpiceFM.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Lea Ubaga. Opposition leaders are now urging MPs to reject proposed changes in the 2025-2026 finance bill on how the housing levy will be implemented. Speaking in Kilifi County, the leaders have urged President William Ruto to ensure that the levy remains in line with its original goal of building affordable housing. Led by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, they've urged COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli to expose allegations of misuse of the National Social Security Fund resources. Gashagua's remarks come after Atwoli slammed the government Department of Housing over proposed amendments to the affordable housing regulations, which would allow the levies to be used for the construction of dispensaries, police stations and markets, as well as housing projects across the country.
Macho imefunguka na tunaomba ifunguke kabisa, kwa sababu pale katika NSSF ambaye yeye ni one of the trustees, pesa ya wafanyikazi wale ambaye wataenda retire imekuwa diverted kwenda kujenga Bomas of Kenya, ambaye ni project private ya watu wako pale na wale wako kwa serikali. Pesa ya NSSF inachukuliwa kwenda kujenga barabara kutoka Rironi kwenda Mau Summit. Kwa hivyo wafanyikazi wale wamestaafu hawatakuwa na nafasi ya kupata pesa zao wakati ukifaa. Kwa hivyo tungetaka wewe Bwana Atwoli, vile umeongea mambo ya housing, tungetaka pia tusikie sauti yako.
Meanwhile, Gachagua has maintained that the brutal killings of Gen Z who are protesting the 2024-2025 budget, that finance bill, are among the reasons that contributed to the differences he had with President Ruto.
Hiyo maneno ya uwaji itaendelea. In fact, hii maneno ya kuua Gen Z is one of the reasons ilifanya mimi nikakosana na William Ruto. Kwa sababu mimi ni Mkristo na mimi ni bwana ya pastor. Alipoamua hii watoto wauawe, nikamwambia hii ni makosa. You cannot kill children. These are innocent people. They are just articulating what they believe in. Na rais akaisema hiyo kazi iendelee, wakiwa na yule mtu ya Yesa, watoto wetu wakauawa. Na tukakuwa na shida kubwa sana na yeye, kwa sababu ni makosa kuua watoto. Na mimi nasema, mimi sio pastor, I am not a prophet, but from the little that I know, ile shida yote iko hii Kenya imepata Rais William Ruto na serikali yake kila siku ni kwa sababu ya damu ya Gen Z.
Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka on his part has called on Kenyans to come out on June 25th to light candles for Gen Z who were killed last year.
Now on the 25th, I have this idea, Kenyans should go there and just waweke tu candles, light candles in front of hiyo gate ya bunge, kusema shetani ambaye anaabudu anaishi huku ndani atoke. Na atoke pamoja, kwa sababu damu ya watoto limwagika hapa. We shall light candles on the 25th outside Parliament. Just light candles. Kwa njia ya utaratibu and remembrance of hao vijana ambao waliuawa tarehe 25 mwezi Juni.
Various human rights organizations and LSK have condemned the killing of blogger Albert Ojwang, who died at the Central Police Station in Nairobi. Speaking to journalists, LSK President Faith Adhiambo has called on the Central Police Station to provide a full report on how Ojwang died in the police cell, saying their report so far is baseless. Meshach Ojwang, the blogger's father, has denied claims that his son hanged himself at the station, saying he was found with serious injuries to his nose, eye and mouth.
Kichwa hakuna jeraha. Jeraha liko kwa pua na kwa mdomo na kwa macho. Yamefura. Macho yake yamefura. Ni mtu amepigwa, aidha amesukumwa kuenda kwa ukuta, amepigishwa kwa ukuta, ama mtu amepigwa na kitu, kulingana na jinsi ambavyo ninaona. Amepata majeraha kwenye uso wake kwa wingi. Pia amejaribu hapa kwenye bega, kuna jeraha fulani. Mtoto amesalimishwa kutoka nyumbani bila tabu, na OCS wa Mawego alithibitisha sisi tukimkabidhi DCI mtoto huyu akiwa mzima wa mwili na alikuwa anatembea. Lakini huyu ambaye sasa amelazwa hapa ni kitu ambacho kimefanyika, sijui kama amepata ajali wapi.
That's the news wire. I'm Ndu Okoh.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, taking a look what's happening with traffic this morning at a few minutes after 7 o'clock. Just before we get into traffic hour, starting to build up here and there. It's quite busy coming off of the Thika Superhighway, heavy through towards the Pangani underpass area. And as you look at Langata Road, it's also busy as you get towards the Uhuru Gardens interchange. You'll find some traffic going towards the southern bypass, but then I think you'll be okay for most of it. And then as you get towards the Nyaya Stadium roundabout, we're fine here as well. Jago Road is busy as you get towards Landis, and there is some traffic as well coming off of Jago Road, coming towards that Landis Road junction. The Thika Superhighway, like I said, crazy this morning, all the way in from the Roiro interchange. So that's going to do the thing for a while this morning. There's also traffic coming in on Kiambu Road, and some of that is also busy coming off of Limuru Road, and we're going to see more of that as you come off of Waiyaki Way. We're getting into traffic hour early this morning. Let's see what happens as we do. We'll talk and keep things moving. Spice FM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing police of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
all right,
Nairobi.
At 8 minutes after 7 o'clock into the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this Monday morning. Ndu Dennis and Dennis with you today, and our live streams are up on Facebook, on YouTube, and on X. And as we get into a number of things this morning, we will be having a conversation around budget 2025. And, we can't get away from those conversations. It is necessary that we do. Well, before we do that, let me remind you, and actually not even remind you, I'll tell you for the first time, and ask you a question. Are you passionate about creating a better future for Kenya? Well, so is I&M Foundation, the social investment arm of the I&M Bank Kenya. So for the past 5 years, I&M Foundation has been making a real difference, investing a significant 2% of the bank's annual profit into impactful programs. It focuses on areas like education and skills development, economic empowerment, and enabling giving. But today, we want to highlight their leadership in environment conservation. The I&M Foundation is dedicated to protecting precious natural heritage through strategic partnerships and community-driven initiatives, ensuring a sustainable future for all. They believe in impact, and are achieving it through focused action. And so, as they review and renew the pact to keep impacting, learn more about I&M Foundation's vital work and how you can potentially collaborate by visiting inmbankgroup.com/foundation to learn more. And as we get into a conversation this morning around Budget 2025, Wanja Maina is the founder of the Hummingbird Center and a member of the Okoh Uchumi campaign. And she is in the hot seat this morning. Wanja, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Mzuri sana.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Good to have you here this morning.
I'm happy to be here.
Many things to discuss, many things to look into concerning Budget 2025. But let's kick it off, first of all, by welcoming you to the Situation Room with a proverb. Dennis will tell you where we are, and then we'd like to hear your interpretation of it.
Yes, Wanja, good morning.
Good morning.
So leo tuko Uganda. Yeah, Uganda, and it is the Pearl of Africa. Many reasons why it is called the Pearl of Africa. First of all, because all year round they receive a lot of rainfall, so it is a breadbasket for the region, and it's home to nearly half of the world's mountain gorillas. You know, so if you want to enjoy watching gorillas, just go to Uganda. As well as it is the source of the Nile River. You know, Nile River goes all the way to Egypt, and it's very important for the Egyptian food and agriculture and whatnot. And today's proverb is: a person who has not traveled thinks his mother is the best cook.
A person who has not traveled thinks his mother is the best cook. Well, I think figurative, literally, it just means you enjoy your ugali at your home. It's upon traveling to Uganda or other places where you find there is value-added ugali with cassava, with yams. And you go to West Africa, you find there is soft ugali made of yam. I think Ndu is laughing. But now...
It's not soft, it's just pounded yam.
Pounded yam. Yeah. But now, the literal meaning, but figuratively, I think it means it is upon traveling, it is upon interacting with people from different cultural extractions, it is upon reading, it is upon what is it called? It's upon benchmarking that you realize how you do things in your country, how you do things in your home or in your culture is not necessarily the best, and there could always be new ways of doing things to embrace, new cultural ways of doing things, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. Always a new way to do things, for sure. Well, it seems as though in terms of budgeting and how we get things done, we seem to be doing the same things the same way, and kind of hoping for a different outcome. People have previously described this or defined this as insanity, but for the purposes of this conversation, let's see then what it can come out to be. The election 2022 was an election that was an economic one, and that everybody campaigned on an economic premise, stating that what was going to happen was that Kenya was going to be saved from the shackles of poverty, and that the economy was going to do, great somersaults and get us to the place where the country was then able to reap different benefits. And the hustler then was the currency that was going to be traded for votes. We heard so many things. Housing was going to be afforded to those who couldn't previously afford it. Mama Mboga was going to be able to do this. Border riders were going to then be able to. Essentially, the idea was that those who had essentially operated on the lower part of the totem pole were then going to be empowered to then live for themselves and also to contribute to the economy. Let's look at Budget 2025. 1,000 days in office in this relatively new administration is what is being marked today. As we look at the Budget 2025-2026, the question is this still towards the protection of the hustler?
1,000 days in office, really, and for those of us who have been around, we feel like it's 1 million years in office, really, because of the amount of poor governance, the amount of backwardness that we're experiencing. But I will just start by passing my condolences to the family of a young man who I believe is in the front page of the Standard, who was killed under mysterious circumstances. And just to go straight to your question and say that this budget, the budget estimates that we have for 2020 financial year 25-26 is not a reflection of the problems of the hustler. Allow me to single out two issues. One is the issue of the school feeding program. Now, there has been a slash of a lot of money in millions, around 600, the money that is meant for the school feeding program. For those who have done the maths here and there, they estimate that 600 million can feed 50,000 children every day for this whole financial year.
Stop. Wait.
6 million.
Let's start again.
600 million.
600 million
is the amount of cuts that has been that have taken that are in this budget for the school feeding program. Now, if 50,000 children were given 1 meal a day using this amount of money, they could be fed for the next 1 year. Now, for those of us who have interacted with people of many economic means, we know that school feeding program is connected to children attending school. It's connected to children enjoying. You know, there are people who are poor in this country. There are children who are motivated by food to go to school. We've had teachers telling us that there are children, when they're given githeri or porridge or something, they eat a bit, they carry a bit to go home because their mother could probably be depending on that same food. So such kind of an indicator is not very pleasant for a country that is a country of high inequalities. There's a very huge inequality between the rich and the poor. So when you look at that, it doesn't look very nice. Something else that doesn't look very nice for the hustler is the issue of VAT on basic things like animal inputs, medication, and actually the fact that there's VAT on raw products that are involved used in making medication. It means people who have diseases will have to pay more for the medication. Now, in a country that has a funny healthcare system, in a country where the national government is always promoting SHA, yet health is a devolved function, I have never had a governor promoting SHA. I've never had a governor supporting anything to do with SHA. You start asking yourself, the people who have a lot of money interact with private facilities. The people who don't have money try to go to the public facilities. If there will be no medication or if there is a cost attached to it, we become a country where we saw a story in the media like two weeks ago in Gatondo, where a parent child died, a young child, because they could not get an ambulance or health services. It is this same country where we see wanton budgeting on some things that do not seem important, like renovations of State House, things like per diems on senior government officials, things that look wasteful. So your average Kenyan will be asking, is this budget for me really? Yeah.
So we talk about, is this budget for me? And there is also the aspect of zero rated versus exempt, and you find farm inputs have been put at exempt as opposed to zero rated, and that would mean that the cost of producing food in the country would go up. And if the cost of production goes up for food, that means the average Kenyan will have to spend more to just buy food, as well as fact that now we even talk in terms of there is no money to fund exams and whatnot in this budget. And the Kenyan is asking, how do we go about it? But even while at it, Wanja, there is the aspect of public participation and Kenyans being involved in this budget making process. From where it is you see it, do you feel like Kenyans have been given an opportunity to play part and ball in the budget making process?
I'll just saying that there's a young lady, her name was Rose. I think the last week the youth and the Gen Zs were doing the hashtag Free Rose. Yeah. She had attempted to help us to navigate the public participation using an IT situation where people could send their things and then some of the key things would be sent to the parliament. We saw what happened to her. She was arrested. She says she was harassed. She's a mother of 2. She slept in the cold for 4 nights. Her only crime, trying to make sense of this budget using IT and technology. She had made an app. For those of us who are just curious observers, we wondered, what is this so secretive about a budget, which is a public document? What is this so secretive about how I'm going to be taxed and how my money is going to be used, that a young lady whose ability to make technology and apps is being arrested for 4 days? I think one of the things about public participation, it's a conversation that we should embrace, and we need it's a pending conversation. Public participation, even at county level, is usually done as a way of ticking the box. it is done just for the sake of compliance. I can tell you for sure, if you go to some of these counties, people mobilize for public participation, the people they like. So they'll just say, MCA leta watu wako 10, Ndu leta watu wako 5, Dennis leta watu wako 5. See, now we had a public participation. So it becomes like a formality because it's a constitutional requirement and not necessarily listening to the views of the many. If you really want to know that public participation is not taken seriously in Kenya, look at the financial year 2024-2025, the one that is coming to an end now. Even if you are new in Kenya, even if you live under a rock, you could tell that the mood of the country is, we are not happy with these proposals. What did the parliamentarians do? All of them, most of them passed it. You could tell that there was total disconnect between the voices of the people and the voices of their representative in the parliament. What am I saying? Sometimes it seems like the executive is very keen on passing some of these things. It doesn't look good on any government to have their intention to spend money and people rejecting them. It could be indicators of a failing government. So I think that's why they try very much to impose, like in this budget, they are making it to look a bit innocent. They are making it to look like we have had you. But it's upon looking at some of these things with a toothpick that you realize it is not very innocent. So in my view, public participation is just a formality. They don't take the views of the people seriously. Otherwise, if they did, you could tell there could be some form of change.
Let's look at what it would look like if actually we saw that the hustler was taken into consideration, because that's essentially what you want to do in any kind of progressive economy, is that you want to make sure that the most vulnerable in any society then are being given a leg up in one way or another, right? So let's look at what it would look like had we seen that the hustler was front and center of an economy. What would we see if truly it had been upheld?
I'm of the view that some of the basics and some of the most important things in any country is health, education, social protection. Because I believe if people can be able to access health, and if the children and the young adults are able to get education and training, and if the poor and the marginalized are sheltered from the economic shocks, then that looks like a good country. But in Kenya, we have seen there was a big headline in the Standards barely a week ago. The big screaming headline was end of free primary education. Now, if you go to these Nairobis, I'm sure when you go to any upmarket area in Nairobi, generally there is always a slum or an informal neighborhood nearby.
Yes.
You can just see the impact of wasted potential of people. Like, have you ever seen brilliant women and you always hope that, I wish they were educated. Education cannot afford to be made to be an exclusive reserve of the rich. Education is an equalizer. For as long as you take away the free primary education, you are setting up yourself as a country for an onset of a lot of social vices. For those of us who have interacted with some of these issues, we know that education is a family planning. The more girls are in school, the more chances they're able to delay motherhood, and the more chances they're able to have children who are able to access nutrition. Education keeps students away from vices like use of drugs, stress. So for me, I think our education is not doing well. We've seen university students are not very happy with how things are moving. The other issue that is a big problem is health. When in other countries, and I less than 2 weeks ago, in the last week of May, I was in an island country called Mauritius. Now, if you go to Mauritius, and I experienced that, and I knew that this is an interesting country. Every time I go to an international airport or an airport, it is like it's an unwritten rule that if someone helps you with your bag, you give them a tip. The lady at the Mauritius airport was not very keen on a tip from me. So I wondered, okay, who would refuse a certain amount of dollars on a good afternoon? Now, I learned that in Mauritius, education is free for all. In Mauritius, health is free for all, even a foreigner. So if you go there coughing, you're going to be given. transport is highly subsidized for children, the elderly, the disabled, and there is also social housing. Now, what am I saying? In a country where health is such a big problem, in a country where people with sick children usually say, wacha alale, tuone vile ataamka asubuhi. Why? Because they cannot afford medication. And now in a country that is not very keen on social protection and preventing people from the shocks of emergencies in their lives, that does not look like a country that is very keen on taking care of the welfare of the hustlers. And the hustlers are many. Most of the people in Kenya are in the informal economy. Most of the people in Kenya live day to day, hand to mouth. So I think a good economy and a good budget is the one that is not taxing people obnoxiously, so that they are able to do business, taking care of health, taking care of education, social protection, and just also the senior government officials to stop wanton wastage, really. They travel a lot. Some of these meetings they go to do abroad could easily be Zoom calls. In a country in a place of technology, COVID taught us that we can have a big conference with Ndu in America. Dennis in
we had
Ethiopia.
presidents have a summit virtually. That was a great thing to see. Yeah.
That is it. But now if you see your country where all the MPs have gone to Ethiopia to dance because you have a candidate in the AU, you wonder who has funded that. Who has funded that kind of, in a country where there is no budget for free education, but every other weekend politicians are doing empowerment projects, giving beans, wheelbarrows, bicycles. You start wondering, where did the money come from?
There's a story here today where there's a parliamentary committee that is questioning why some government units are actually collectively spending more in paying rent. In this particular case, there's the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics and the Kenya Institute of Public Policy and Analysis, 300 million on rent annually, even as government office spaces remain vacant. My question is, when you're looking at a public debt from 8.7 trillion in 2002 to now 11.35 trillion. You tie the debt, you tie wastage. Are you able, in your report, to track wastage?
Well, I'll just start by saying that there's that kind of an attitude when people say, hizi ni pesa za gava. And then just lack of efficiency and effectiveness in terms of how they operate. There's a lot of opulence and there's a lot of you want to look like you're high up there. That is a psychology of people in government. So you'll find, and I think we have had these stories. I think there was a time there was some form of a conflict where some people had been told due to move from which office to go to the railways, and it was being seen to be like it is a downgrade.
Office of Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Office of the cabinet, yet is a government office. So if it was up to them, they would have gone to the up markets of this world. And I think now it's just the issue of effectiveness and efficiency. And some of these things that how I see people operating, I usually ask myself, would they have done the same if it was the budget in their homes? Absolutely not. We have seen funny numbers like people buying laptops at 400k. A good laptop can be like 100k at most.
Even if you tried very hard and woke up very early, you could find one for
And even their output, they are not working very hard and very efficiently to justify that they have the best of laptops that cost 400k surely. But just to answer Dennis and talk about issues of wastage, it is some of these things that we see and we shiver. We've seen, there are some reports that the Office of the Auditor General usually share because she's the one actually who is able now to audit. For us, we can only see people traveling to America and we wonder why you need such a big delegation. But the Auditor General has constantly given us reports that are very alarming. One side, there was an expenditure of what? Paying rent cumulative 300 million, in a country that has a lot of public buildings that can easily be lent at a subsidized cost. You start asking yourself, what can 300 million do for now a certain number of people. Why do we have people who are paying rent for 300M, yet we have a budget cutting on school feeding program and eating food, and it's a basic need? I think that kind of a psychology, and I'm a Catholic. Bishop Mohoria talks about political hygiene. And we talk about political hygiene, I think political hygiene transcends beyond how we make fun of each other, calling each other cousins, to actually now trying to ask ourselves, is it worth it to pay 300 million? Is it important? And though, because we interact with some of these people who are in politics, who are our friends, they'll also tell you they cannot have meetings in the boardrooms of those places where they have 300 million. Why? Because there is no per diem. I can tell you, if they want to have a meeting, they usually go out of town. So beyond that 300 million that is paid to the one who is renting, any important meeting that involves a discussion will be held in Nakuru, Naivasha, Mombasa. Why? It's out of the station. This budget is actually moving the exemption of the taxes for the per diem from 2,000 to 10,000. So they will prefer to be away from the offices to do it, out of town. And it doesn't look very good.
You know, the reason I ask this is there have been calls to do an independent debt audit. And we know where that conversation has gone. In 2013, the then Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich under Uhuru's administration announced austerity measures, and for the first time it almost felt like this is the first time we're actually seeing something significant happening. And the announcement, which was in the budget policy statement, was banning spending on a number of things. So one is office tea and snacks, chai, namandazi, fresh flowers, decorations. There was the newspaper subscriptions, lavish foreign trips, and workshops, the one you've just referred to, workshops and retreats in very high-end hotels. And that was part of a broader government effort to cut wastage by at least 50% of the revenue at the time. The question I'm asking is, because, we'll talk about these figures in a very interesting way. When you break 300 million as an example into what 300 million can actually do, we're going to have a different conversation. My question is it that we don't have a way to track these wastages in government? And that's why it's easy to just get away with a lot of these things, despite saying, you know what, I'm going to cut tea in this office for the next 5 years. But there is no tracking. How much tea was being consumed before? How much tea are we consuming now? Are you able to track any form of wastage in government?
Am I able to track any form of wastage? Well, maybe I may not have a direct answer. I still believe that Office of the Auditor General is the one who is actually in charge of that kind of a task. But then again, Kenyans, we hear these things. For example, we also know that austerity is also used, and this conversation is actually speaking to the broader issues of macroeconomics, where we see now influences of the Britain institutions of this world. Whenever there are discussions around austerity, they usually target the bottom. You have too many people you have employed, let's shed off some people. So they'll shed off people in the low cadre jobs. You're talking about austerity, let's cut tea, mandazi and all. With all honesty, tea and mandazi looks like a very small budgetary voted compared, for example, to the kind of bloated delegations that go to Europe for 5 days or 7 days.
Or if you have one department in a ministry that has 9 vehicles, that of which that are all of the SUV nature.
Correct. So austerity and those kind of conversations, they are always being very they're always being very much on the surface. And I might also say that whenever there are those discussions around austerity, the people who are affected most are the vulnerable.
Yes.
Because even women are the ones who work in low cadre jobs that are not very well paying, the young people, entry-level positions. So I feel like the discussion on austerity should move beyond issues of flowers and tea to look at the top, because that's where big monies are spent. However, the Office of the Auditor General has not been having a very good time because she speaks the truth. There is even a time where she was a whole discussion in Parliament when she talked about SHA and that kind of a funny thing around the systems. So you can also tell that the country where the MPs are the ones who are supposed to oversight and protect us, some of us believe they have been captured. So now we are left with the office of the District General that is being bold, but now there is something that they want to do with her office to cut her claws. So the question, therefore, is who are the people who are supposed to defend us? Yeah.
It's a good question. But we also then see that there's a bill before Senate right now that is asking for the Auditor General to do more than just report.
Yeah.
But that bill has actually been brought about by members of the Senate saying, you know what, we are then saying expand the powers of the Auditor General beyond reporting and recommending, then also bring in an investigative arm. Open up the powers towards investigation. Those are some of the conversations that we'll have. But then also the seriousness with which a developing nation's budget then has to be taken into consideration here. And we'll come back and we'll continue with that conversation. She's a member of the Okoh Uchumi campaign. Maina is the founder of the Hummingbird Center as well. And we're looking at whether budget 2025-2026, whether the hustler economy is still a priority. Are this wananchi that everybody was, shouting about for months on end in 2023, are they still front and center of the conversation? We'll continue with this when we come back from this break at 24 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This June on Next Superstar, the pressure is on. It's vocal battles, show-stopping performances, and edge-of-your-seat showdowns. Recharge your subscription on your current bouquet for 2 months and get upgraded to the next high bouquet for 60 days to watch the battle unfold on Rainbow TV+. The search for Africa's next hitmaker just got hotter. Renew your subscription today and get upgraded to the next high bouquet for 2 months free. Who will judges Motive, Size 8, and King Kaka choose to move on to the next round? On the move, stream Next Superstar live on StarTimes On. Anytime, anywhere. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Oh, great!
This June, the biggest Club World Cup ever held is here. The 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. Recharge your subscription on your current bouquet for 2 months and get upgraded free to the next high bouquet for 60 days. A competition across the continent. 30 action-packed days of top-notch football from 32 best club teams from around the world. Recharge your subscription today to never miss a moment of a competition like never before. On the move, download StarTimes On and watch every goal, every moment, anytime, anywhere. StarTimes Sports, beyond passion. StarTimes, enjoy digital life.
Provides the inspiration for Leipzig.
Traffic.
All right, taking a look at what's happening with traffic this morning, and still a bit fuzzy in many parts. As you come off the Thika Superhighway, it is quite sticky. It's going to be continuing like this for a while from all that we can see, and we are in traffic hour proper now. Kiambu Road is also busy. There's a network beehive, all those things of activity in the city today. As you're getting into the CBD, coming in from Limuru Road as well, and this is taking on traffic that's coming in all the way from Ruaka, Roslyn, out the village market, and then through towards Wangari Maathai on one side, and you want to get towards Kiambu Road on the other. It's busy coming off of Waiaki Way, and we're also seeing traffic coming in from Lower Kabete towards Spring Valley, so that's doing the thing there. Also, Langata Road is busy. Coming off of Mombasa Road is busy as well. Saturday was a day out of the 9th circle of hell on Mombasa Road. Not quite sure what's happening there today, but just a little bit of it. Hopefully we can keep things at a dull roar. We'll talk and keep things moving. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Coming in at 21 minutes to 8 o'clock, our conversation is around Budget 2026. Maina is here with us today, and we're looking at quite a number of these issues. From the Okoh Uchumi campaign, as a member of that, and also a founder of the Hummingbird Center. And as we talk about these things, there's the paper of it, Wanja, isn't it? That there's the paper, there's all sorts of policy documents. There's the Public Finance Management Act. There is the Office of the Auditor General. There's the Office of the Controller of Budget. There are all these policies and offices that have been put in place to ensure that then these activities that the nation involves itself in from September, for example, in terms of budget making, and the things that you do as a result of that are actually established, number one, and that they're practiced, and then you keep according to mandate. They are there. However, for me, that's the vehicle and it's the nuts and bolts. But the fuel to get this thing moving is will. And I think that's where I see the problem is, that we don't have the fuel to get this caboose moving. And we can talk about it. We talk about it all the time. We talk about budget 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Here we are, another one, 2025, 2026. And we're saying that the very thing that we ran elections on, telling people that you were going to safeguard, protect, and progress the livelihoods of Kenyans, we're saying it hasn't happened. And somehow we're okay. We seem to be okay with it, that it hasn't happened. You told the nation for months on end that this is what you were going to do. Yesterday, the president was at a church service and he said, you know what? I am doing everything that I can. I will continue to do everything that I can. I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that Kenya succeeds. He said it yesterday again. But would we not see the manifestation of that promise?
If actually maybe the question should also be how we measure that success that he's aspiring. But if you go to most of these estates and most of these town, the shops are getting closed every day. If you go to the estates, you'll see a person has started like a small business. After a few months, they are not there. If you go to town, I'm told things are doing so badly that the way people are being told to do a deposit for like 3 months, do down payment, goodwill. Yeah. Nowadays, it's like they are so desperate that they just want you to first come and occupy. So therefore, when it comes to success and how people are faring, it has to be felt by the vibrance of the economy. No, the thing about the economy, and that's why they always make it look like a very exclusive discussion, is that the economy, let's say for example, there's a Kenyan whose income is like to say 30K. If there are a lot of taxes and things are getting worse, how it affects Dennis, for example, is if that Kenyan, maybe after every 2 weeks, they go for a nail treatment, the women go for the facial treatment. Now, if you realize that your money is shrinking, what you do is that you stop using your money on some things that are seen to be luxurious. So if I used to go to your hotel to eat a pizza, I want to go. If I used to make my nails after every 2 weeks, I'll make my nails after every 4 weeks. So the very nature of some of these big macroeconomic issues around the influence of these big institutions that are outside of Kenya and the kind of conditionalities they give us is now reflected in how your average Kenyan is going to spend their money, the little that they have. Needless to say also, Kenya is a country of black tax. Most of these young people who are employed, the ones that are seen to be doing well, they'll tell you that they pay for the education of their younger siblings, their sick mom, their old relative, and the child in the village whom they give birth outside of the wedlock. Ndu Okoh is depending on them for 5K a month. So at any given time, the money has a lot of needs. Remember, we are a country without social protection. You know, in other countries, if you are old up or 65, the government has helped you by giving you a certain amount of money. So if you are a young working youth in Nairobi, you are the social protection for your village. So therefore, this does not look like the promise of the hustler. And you know, they whip the emotions of the hustler just to get their numbers. But on the ground, it doesn't look very well. And there are people who have argued that Kenya does not have a money problem. It has a wastage problem and an expenditure problem. And I do agree. Remember, every other day the governors are always crying, our money is sijui imefanya nini, our money is sijui imefanya nini. So those of us now who know that Kenya is our form of governance is devolved, you start asking ourselves, if the governor is crying because of lack of the money from the government, I'm sure the moment they get money, they'll be worried of whether to pay the staff who are about to strike, pay these expensive rents. And sometimes you also hear stories, you wonder. You'll find that if it's a governor, for example, in a rural county, they also, even though they have a well-furnished office in the county, they also have a private office in a market area in Nairobi. So you priorities, when priorities becomes, things are pushed, the people at the bottom of the pyramid are the ones who are likely to just,
You mentioned something to do with the priority, and here we are discussing about the budget. You look at what one would say would be the most important things: education, healthcare, security, food would go into being a priority for the country. But here we are today saying how we do not have funds for education exams. Parents will have to go deeper into their pocket. What does that do to the millions and millions of children in the country? We talk about healthcare that is still struggling. Yet, if you look at this very same budget, we see that the renovations at State House and all these other offices are taking place. There are reports of a new jet that is supposed to be bought, We also have reports of new vehicles that need to be bought, curtains, 1 million. And one just goes to ask, our priority when it comes to this budget, is it misplaced? Is it in the right place?
It is misplaced. It is tone deaf. The reason why we had the Gen Z protesting, we remember that what triggered them was how the MPs were making fun of them when they are making their contributions in the budget that was not reflective of their feelings. Sijui, they wanted to digital tax. Some Gen Zs are saying, you people have not offered us employment, so we are in Kenya, but we are making content, we are working virtually abroad, and what have you. The budget that we have and the people who engage in this kind of processes are tone deaf. They do not want, I think they live outside of, or they are so comfortable to listen to the problem of the poor who are down. I remember there was a story that I'm sure I heard it in one of these morning shows. They say that if some people heard that you didn't eat, they'll ask you, Kwani you didn't feel like cooking or to order in, because they will wonder, how lazy are you not to eat?
Not to eat, yeah.
They'll ask, for those of us who are trying to lose weight, they'll ask you, when you go intermittent fasting, you are just weird, But the truth of the matter is that Kenya is a country of inequalities. And if you look at now some of these issues, social issues, and one of the things that we ought to start doing now is to connect these economic issues and politics to the lived realities of people. Now, take an example. In Kenya, 38% of households are single-parent led. Now, if the 38% of households are single-parent led, it is just factual that single-parent led households are generally poorer because of relying on one income. Now, even though they could be single parent led with a dad, single dad or single mom, we also know that most of the households are single mom led. Now, how the politicians are behaving when they don't listen to the issues of the taxes, how these budgets will pass, will influence the parent. Now I'm imagining that kind of a household that is poorer, they rely on public education, the parent is worried about lunch, so they know lunch is sorted kwa sababu mtoto wako kwa shule. So they are only worried about breakfast and dinner. And it's upon listening to people, and these budget processes should also humanize people. There are children who don't eat a balanced diet. You listen to people, they just say mtoto takes tea and a bun. That is not a balanced diet for a child who is growing. But now, because we have been put on a perpetual survival mode, people even don't care about balanced diet. They just care about food.
There's something in the stomach, essentially, so we're talking about that people are not hungry.
It. Even I'm told in some homes that are even more poorer, it's like the mom looks like they are cooking something so that kids get tired of eating and they sleep. This is still Kenya. And I wish our leaders and our parliamentarians, some of these representatives, they are representative of some of the poorest rural constituencies. And therefore, their voices should be louder to talk about the welfare of their people. Take an example, Ndu. We have been relying a lot, and we have now to even look at the global issues. We have been relying a lot for health from aid agencies. Donald Trump comes and says USAID money will not be given to these developing countries. You know what that means? That means the country, because it is the job of the government to give the people public goods like education, water, what. You had put the life of your citizens in the hand of donor agencies. Fair enough, we are in a global village, but it's not the job of the American people to treat your people who live positively with HIV. So what does that do? Trump comes and he's tired. He wants to take care of his people. Within one week or 2 weeks or 1 month, there is no money that is coming to your country. Yet a lot of your health projects had been relying on international agencies. What does that mean? That means you have to know where to get the ARTs and the ARVs for your people. And what does that also mean? That if you're making your budget, that should be reflected in how you are doing the health budgeting. But for those of us who are looking at the budgets, there is no additional money given to the National AIDS Program, which is a program by the government to take care of the people who live positively with AIDS, for example. We also know that people who live positively also now interact with the healthcare quite a lot. So the question is, what is the government intending to do with their 1.4 million people who live positively with HIV and other situations around health if you have not increased the money in the budget for the healthcare? I think these issues are very local if you look at them closely. But then again, you'll see now broadly now Kuju, there's a lot of emphasis on estimates that are, and you know, by the way,
estimates that are
the budget estimates that you can hardly probably pinpoint nicely. For example, if you say an increase in state house renovations, you know, now we'll start by saying let's remove the colonial roof, let's put a flat roof. Tomorrow we'll say now these mabatis are bad for the climate change. There are things now where it's places that are easy to get money, and we also know that we are a country of kickbacks and funny stuff like those. But no, you had also mentioned around issues of the proposal in the Senate around the office of the Auditor General.
Yes.
And for me, I usually say, Kenya, we have enough laws. Our constitution is enough. Why? Of course, we have to always develop laws as a way of improving our welfare, but the constitution is clear. Provide things for public goods, you know, promote the devolution, promote prudence use of resources. So if there's prudence use of resources, there's no even money to steal or, you know, even money to waste. So I think those are the issues.
And I think here, I think that's that there is money to steal or to waste. There is. It is available. The thing, though, is that if we live by the rule of law, then we don't steal or waste or misplace, that we don't, and then it is not a brick and mortar issue, but that it becomes a more subjective issue, and that we're all having conversations within ourselves to say that yes, it is there, I can, but because I realize that the issues around nationalism and patriotism and just doing the right thing, I'm going to hold those things sacrosanct, right? But we seem to have, we don't, it's a suggestion more of anything else. The rule of law and, you know, abiding by it is a suggestion. If the wind blows in a certain direction that day and you're feeling okay, then maybe I will do it. But we don't live by that. We don't hold those things dear. And so we keep saying, what are the solutions? What are the things that we must apply? And I still find myself gravitating towards, then everybody needs to have a conversation with themselves, right? Because if we did hold the rule of law up there in terms of priority, if we did talk about integrity and working within certain lines and ideologies, then for me, all of these things fall in place. Then you won't have a budget whereby you're looking at how can I make a buck or two. You won't even have to think about whether you should educate your children or not. You will not have a conversation about should we make this health thing work. It'll just happen because you know it's the right thing to do. So should we be shifting our conversations? Because it seems that the things that we complain about on a daily basis, we started this morning complaining, I mean, it really soured my heart. We complained this morning about how we shouldn't kill people. It seems to me that it's a no-brainer that you shouldn't have to think about that. It seems that you have certain amounts of Kenya shillings that you should be sorting the country. You shouldn't have to think about whether you should educate your children or treat your sick. You shouldn't have to think about those things, and yet we find ourselves having to think about it all the time. That should we or should we not? And then should we make a law that will hold somebody responsible if they don't? Well, I mean,
so like if you apply for these two government things, these two boards, I've been involved like in a board here and there. You're told, bring, they're called Chapter 6 documents, EACC clearance, DCI, money for the help, what.
Yeah.
Therefore, it means from the onset, they're telling you, welcome to this government process or work, and we are not,
corruption-free zone.
Corruption-free zone. So it looks like there's a lot of cosmetics around it, or they aspire, but it's not on the ground. You talk about some of these things, like for example the story that is in the front page of the Standard. We are talking about killing people. Kenya is 82% Christians. Now I think the commandment that we talk about in a big way is thou shalt not kill. So you wonder, are we still Christians as we profess? But for me, I think these issues are so many and they are so layered. For example, the voters and the quality of people they choose.
Yes.
For those of us who might have interacted with the political process, we know that the voters really love money, and the elections in Kenya are capital intensive. There was a report by a group of people, I think they're called Westminster something. They say that the average amount of money that you need to vie to be a member of parliament is 20 million. Now, for you to be a person who can spend 20 million, we know that you must have an extra amount of money that does not come from your savings, because I don't believe you can just decide to dish out your savings of 20 million.
Kuna pesa ya maziwa na mboga.
That is it.
Yeah.
So now, I think now if we are to look at this issue in a very holistic way, we also have to start asking the software of the voter. You voter, when you are looking for a representative in the parliament or in the senate or in the county assembly, what goes on in your head? Then we'll say, get the right leaders who are able to solve your things. But now on these issues of public finance management, I think first is just the parliamentarians who are already there to know that basically, and I remember when the Gen Z went to the parliament, even though there was a lot of painful stories around it, we have seen documentaries, I think for me, the symbolic nature of that revolution, if I were to use that word, was people saying, you parliamentarians, you are disturbing us, you are not listening to us, we have come to represent ourselves. Because a parliament is a very important, national treasure. So the parliamentarians, one, should just be sensitive to the needs of the people. Public participation should be seen to be a fact-finding mission, a listening tour to the people. They tell you this and that. But then again, I also think the executive, and particularly the president, he sets the tone. Now, we're in a country where we are back to these roadside declarations. You remember, like when you went to a church in Thika Road, he just said, nimefurahi nitawapea 20 million. For a person who is just seated there, you wonder, 20 million will be removed from a certain vote head that was meant to do something else to come to be given to a church. What are they doing? A church is not producing anything. They are not educating anybody. And then now, the next time you go to where the president, you dance for him nicely, he becomes happy with you and your county, he gives you 500 million. Where was it budgeted to? Because ideally, the way they save money should follow all functions, or the reason why you engage in budgeting is attaching certain kind of priorities to money. So every time you hear that there is a money that has been given out of the excitement of the executive when they visit a certain place, you should start asking yourself, so does that mean money for school feeding program has come out? Those are really the issues.
These are the issues, and even as our time comes to a head here and we're looking at, those are the issues that will we then have an issue-based budget in the future? This one is out. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're already out of the blocks for this. But will we then have an issue-based budget? Is it possible for nations to be able to do that, and for us to actually be able to then interrogate and question, but based on fact and not feeling? So to have these conversations is important that we do, and thank you for being here for us to be able to do that. Wanja Maina is the founder of the Hummingbird Center and a member of the Okoh Uchumi campaign, has been our guest this hour as we look in some of these pertinent issues. Budget days are coming, and as we continue to have the conversations, it'll be interesting to see how this is all played out. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
And good morning at 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. News from around the world. 94.4.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Ndu Okoh. The Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, has interdicted all police officers who are on duty at the Central Police Station when Albert Ojwang died on Sunday. In a statement, the National Police Service said the interdiction is to allow for an impartial investigation at the station by the Independent Police Oversight Authority. The IG ordered interdiction of OCS, duty officer on duty during the night in question, cell sentry on duty at the time as well, all officers who are on duty at the report office that night, and any other officer found to have been on duty or otherwise involved during the incident. Ojwang died at the Central Police Station in Nairobi on Sunday, a case that his father said is under malicious circumstances.
Kichwa hakuna jeraha. Jeraha liko kwa pua na kwa mdomo na kwa macho. Yamefura. Macho yake yamefura. Ni mtu amepigwa, aidha amesukumwa kuenda kwa ukuta, amepigishwa kwa ukuta, ama mtu amepigwa na kitu, kulingana na jinsi ambavyo ninaona. Amepata majeraha kwenye uso wake kwa wingi. Pia amejaribu hapa kwenye bega, kuna jeraha fulani. Mtoto amesalimishwa kutoka nyumbani bila tabu, na OCS wa Mawego alithibitisha sisi tukimkabidhi DCI mtoto huyu akiwa mzima wa mwili na alikuwa anatembea. Lakini huyu ambaye sasa amelazwa hapa ni kitu ambacho kimefanyika, sijui amepata ajali wapi.
This was after police arrested him at his home in Kakot, Homa Bay County on Saturday afternoon. The officers said they were probing him over a post he allegedly made on the social media platform, that is X. The 7 Kamsas, a number of activists are set to protest his killing today. Now, NAT Secretary Trans Nzoia Branch George Wanjala has expressed his displeasure with the government's move to remove the examination fee from the 2025-2026 budget estimates. Wanjala said the move will hurt students from disadvantaged communities.
Katiba inatoa elimu kuwa ni haki ya mwanafunzi, na mwanafunzi anapokosa kufanya mtihani basi amenyimwa haki yake ya kimsingi kupata elimu. Examination ni kipengele muhimu sana kwa mambo ya elimu, kwa sababu mwishowe tutamesha tu tujue mtoto yule alifanya namna gani, anaenda next level. Tunasikitika sana kama chama kwamba hiyo examination fee imekuwa withdrawn from the budget na mzigo umerudishwa wazazi. Hiyo examination fees irudishwe mara moja kwa budget ya serikali, ili wale wazazi ambao hawajiwezi, ambao ni wengi sana katika taifa hili, waweze kupata nafasi ya watoto wao kufanya mtihani.
Wanjala also expressed anger over the delay in the release of funds to finance studies across public schools, saying the situation has become an obstacle to the efficient operation of educational institutions.
Capitation shuleni haijafika, na kama imefika ni kiwango kidogo sana. Ni kama serikali inajukulia mambo ya elimu kwa mzaa. Bila elimu taifa hili halitasonga. Tungependa tuone kwamba kila shule inapewa pesa ambazo zinahitajika. Kuna shule katika taifa hili ilipata 87 shillings kwa account. Head teachers wanalalama sana kwamba watoto wanaandikwa kwenye record ambayo inaitwa NEMIS. Kama kwa mfano shule na watoto 600 ambao wanaandikwa NEMIS. Pesa zinapokuja, majina ya watoto yametolewa kwenye NEMIS, mwalimu kwa mebaki na majina kama 250. Hebu serikali ikuje out openly itueleze wanapesa kiasi gani ya kufund education in this country.
And finally, the High Court in Nairobi has temporarily halted a recent directive by the State Law Office and the National Police Service Commission that sought to ban all decorative art, graffiti and creative enhancements on public service vehicles. In orders issued at the Milimani Law Courts, Justice Bahati Mwamuye granted conservatory orders in favour of petitioner Michael Makubo William, who challenged the legality and constitutionality of the ban. The contested notice dated May 14 directed all PSV operators to immediately remove from their fleets and vehicles all innovative decorations, graffiti and other artistic enhancements. Well, the petitioners has until today to serve all parties, and any rejoinders must be filed by June 27th. That's the News Wire. I'm Ndu Okoh.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. On your side.
All right, taking a look at what's happening with traffic this morning. It's still pretty busy as we get into it. We are into traffic hour, and it's very, very busy as you're coming off of Langata Road this morning, getting towards the city. There's traffic coming in all the way from, of course, Langata Road, coming in from the Karen area, joining with what's coming off of Magadi Road, heading out towards Langata Road. Very, very busy. Traffic then coming off of Mombasa Road all the way from that South Sea Panari interchange, the Next Gen Mall. Extremely busy, bumper to bumper, through and through, and it's going to join with what's coming off of Langata Road, all joining onto Huru Highway this morning. The Thika Superhighway is still very heavy, with traffic coming in from Garden City out towards the CBD, and the crossover from the Northern Bypass coming in all the way from Thedegwa, that place in Kiabu, is very, very busy as well, and it's going to find traffic all the way through towards Muthaiga Square. So we are in traffic hour, and it's busy this morning. We're going to keep an eye on things and try to keep it moving. We'll talk Spice FM, KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, empowering you to achieve your dreams and secure your future with our financial solutions across Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Mauritius. I&M Bank, on your side.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
At 8 minutes after 8 o'clock, this is the Situation Room, and on this 9th day of June, we're looking into a number of conversations this morning, and we continue with those. And we ask ourselves the question often, what should we do when it comes towards retirement, and how should we make sure that our retirement is in tow and that we have certain issues sorted out? Our guest is seated this hour, and as we look into those issues, Pauline Gathuri is the Senior Manager with Life Insurance Business Association of Kenya Insurers, and we're looking at retirement planning and why it is important. Pauline, good morning and welcome again to the Situation Room.
Good morning and nice to see you again.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah?
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
You know, when we hear retirement, we get scared.
Oh, why?
Yeah, because we now start asking ourselves the question, say, okay, I have not started in time. I don't even have a shilling. Where am I supposed to put it? It's under the mattress or pillow in the back of the drawer. Is that enough? And, we're always asking ourselves this question. And folks who've got into now maybe what would be, when the window is closing, you're saying, okay, what am I going to do? Yes. And I guess that's why it's important for us to have these conversations, because I guess you're going to tell us that there is something that you can do and why it's important to do so.
Yes.
So before we start that, Dennis has taken a trip on CT's behalf, and he's gone to a different African country. So CT's asked him to tell you what today's proverb is and where it's from, and then to give us your opinion in form of an interpretation.
I was hoping to do this. No, when I didn't see him, I was very happy.
No. So you see how the Constitution, you don't see the Constitution every day.
Yeah.
So you don't see CT every day, but it's delegated the powers. So
yeah. And so today we actually close our home. Close home in the sense that it's just a neighboring country called Uganda.
I'll try.
Now, Uganda is a very interesting country because in terms of rainfall, as compared to other countries in the region, it enjoys more rain, a food basket of the region. But that aside, they also have a mountain range, the Rwenzori, which is largest in Africa. And aside from that, if you want to enjoy gorillas, I know we don't have that in Kenya, but just go to Uganda and enjoy the same and perhaps say hello to Museveni, Yeah. But aside from that, the proverb of the day today, a person who has not traveled thinks his mother is the best cook.
That is Kenyan. You can have it in my local language. Yes.
What do you make of it then?
Yeah, that's when you're only exposed to what is at home, or when you're only exposed to, for example, what is in Kenya, you imagine it's the best. When you travel, then you get exposed to other things, and your mind and thinking expands.
Yeah, and you see, in this case, when you're just exposed to having your money in your mattress, you would not know the importance of having what? Early planning.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, there you go. I mean, it's, I guess, travel a bit, open things up, right? Retirement planning and why it's important. That's the conversation that we have today. And every time we hear this big R word, we're like, oh my goodness, the scary times are coming. But maybe not so much, Pauline?
If you've planned, it's not scary.
Okay.
But when we don't plan, it can be very scary. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now, you're telling us that it is important to plan for retirement. I mean, it sounds like something that's so obvious when you think about the time when you will not be actively working or then actively running a business. But then it seems pretty obvious that you should plan. But let's get into the issues of why then it is important from where you are.
Thank you so much, Ndu. Now, to start with, I work for the Association of Kenya Insurers. That's like the umbrella body of all the insurance companies in Kenya. We are not the regulator. Many people think we are the regulator. We are not. The regulator is Insurance Regulatory Authority. The pension business is, in this case, the insurance industry is a major player in running actually the majority of the pension schemes in the industry. And pension business is one of the best, I would say, regulated business in Kenya, because it's regulated by, in the case of the insurance companies, the Insurance Regulatory Authority. And also we have a regulator called the Retirement Benefits Authority, who really regulate all the pension schemes in the country. And for you to operate a pension scheme, you must register it with RBA. So on to why is it important to plan? Why is it that we need to plan for this retirement? And I think I would look at it in that when you look at our lives, it's basically 3 stages of life. The first stage, before maybe age 20, up to age maybe 25, if you're lucky, you're under your parents' care.
Yeah.
They take care of every need you have. They take you to school, they feed you, they house you, everything. So at that time, you're a dependent on your parents. And that time, then you go to the next stage, which is basically like the productive stage of your life. This is the age where you actually produce and, take care of other people. So from age 25 or 30 to about 55, 60, when your body slows down that's the most critical stage in your life, because that's the time now you're developing yourself, you're starting your career, or you're setting up your business. You have a lot of energy, you have a lot of ideas. You know, you are at your most productive in life. And then responsibilities are also following you. You have family, you have children, you have to pay school fees, you have to, you know, all those things. And in the midst of all those things that you're supposed to do, you have to remember the next stage of life that is awaiting you, which is now what we call the retirement stage, whereby the time you hit age 60, whether you like it or not, biologically your body will slow down. You'll not have as much energy. You'll not be able to hustle the way you could hustle during your productive stage. So, and this is where most of us forget that this stage is coming. So in the midst of the school fees and the housing and the taxes and all those things, please, it's very important for you to also put something aside that you will use when you get to the last stage, because the last stage is mainly consumption. Yes, between 60 and 70, if you had, for example, started something, you can still produce, but it will be at a slower pace. And when you look at this stage, there are some facts that are quite, like the Retirement Benefits Authority. They do a lot of surveys in the country, and one of the things they have noted is that after the retirement age of 60, most people are assured of living for the next another extra 20 to 30 years. That is to age 80 and 90. At that stage, you cannot do much. Your work is just to consume. Then the other thing is that there are some expenses that really go up during that retirement stage. Medical costs. Again, the research from RBA shows that up to 40% of the total income of a retiree goes to medical expenses. And another very trend, I think it's a new trend that has developed, very scaring, is that RBA have also done the latest research they've done, that 40% of now the current retirees' income is going to support grandchildren and their children. So it means at that stage they still have dependents. I don't know whether it's because of the economy, and so the younger people who are supposed to be in the production stage, so the burden is actually shifting to parents now in their 70s. So you can see that is why it is so crucial for us to save that. And then again, the last fact from this research is that when they did a research in the country, only about 26% of people are actually consciously saving towards their retirement.
What number was that?
26%.
26%.
Yes.
So, okay, sometimes you break that down. Say for every 100 people, only 26 are actively saving. Okay, you know, let's have real conversations, Pauline, right? So, saving for a retirement, we've heard the numbers before and what we've been told, and we're told that you should there's a certain percentage that you should put aside. So if you're not active, like you said later on, what kind of numbers should you be putting aside to ensure that you can either maintain or improve where you have been in the last 20, 30, 40 odd years? What should we be putting aside so that you can ensure that time you're not a burden to anybody, but at the same time that you can maintain quality of life?
Okay, thank you so much. So the experts say for you to live a comfortable life, you need about 70% of your current income. So they say to achieve that, maybe you need to save about 20% of your salary every month. But again, when we look at it, that may not be very practical with all those expenses you have during that stage. So we always say that if you are able to put aside just 10% of your income towards your future retirement, that is most people are able to retire comfortably with that kind of savings per month, because again, when you start putting away that money, remember it's being invested, it's earning compound interest, and remember they say compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So the earlier you start, the better, because then compound interest works into your advantage. So I would say if somebody is able, if you still don't have a lot of responsibilities and you're able to put aside a higher percentage, the better. If you're not able to, just start. Even if it's 1%, just start with what you have. You know, the most important thing is to put something aside. And as you do that, then you never know next year your situation improves, and then you can be able to do that.
Okay.
And if I could just maybe give an example, is why do we want to do this? Is because yes, we know there are so many stresses in life. Even right now, we are all stressing about money. You have so many obligations, but actually, they say the worst kind of poverty, and I think you'll agree with me, is the poverty you suffer in old age, when you don't have the energy and you have very few options in old age. But when you're younger, you can hustle, you can go talk to your friends, let them give you ideas, try this. But when you're old, your options are very limited.
So, Pauline, we talk about insurance penetration that is low. We talk about retirement now and the need to plan for that. And one would say, I just want to save my money in my bank just so I see it there and I feel nice that I have this money. But what now, when it comes to retirement, what are some of the products that are there? Where does one even start from? Because it is information that also, it's being said, it is hidden. It is not there for people to grasp it. It's not at our fingertips. So what is there in the market?
Thank you very much. So one of the things I'll just mention before I talk about the product, last year in December, the government came up with the tax benefits, the tax amendment laws. And they gave some other benefits which we had been fighting for the last 10 years. The tax benefits now that the government has extended to people to save for their retirement are actually amazing. Number one, the new laws now allow you to save up to 30,000 of your salary, of your money every month, tax-free. So you enjoy that tax benefit at source. So when the HR is preparing the pay slip, kwanza anakupatia your benefit. Number two, something that we've been fighting for so long is that before, when you now came to the stage of when you're drawing your fund, your pension at retirement, you would pay tax, quite heavy tax. Now that has all been removed, so that now when you get to the retirement age, if your retirement age is 60 according to your scheme, or if it's 55, whatever the retirement age defined by your scheme, you get this fund that you have saved tax-free, and or if you have been in the scheme for 20 plus years. If you've been saving, not just this particular scheme, but you've been saving for your retirement for 20 years, then you get the money tax-free. Again, if you retire on ill health, somebody can even retire at age 40 because of sickness. Then again, you draw your money tax-free. That's a huge tax benefit. And I think we really need to take advantage of it. And so one of the things you'll find is when you're able to just start small, put some money aside, then at the end of it, you'll find you have built in a good chestnut. Why is it that, because then as you said, why can't I just put it in the bank? So number one is the discipline. I don't know whether if you put money in your account, are you able to keep it there for the whole month, So it is very important to lock it away somewhere where you can't just pick it. And again, pension money is very protected. I would want to just even ask people to read the Retirement Benefits Authority, Google that organization. They are very, very strong in regulating the pension monies. So what happens is when you set up a pension scheme, it doesn't mean you can't also invest in other things. You can buy a house, rent a house, you can do a money market, you can do a SACCO, but please, it should not be like an alternative to your retirement. Why do I say that? You find we encounter people, somebody has a rental house, like the other day I was being told about a lady, she's now in her 70s, she has a rental house. Her tenant has not paid her rent for 18 months.
And she's still there.
And she's unable to, she don't even have the energy now at 70 to fight a young 35-year-old, And finally, when she even involved other people to help her, she just said, please just get out of my house, you know. And rent wasn't paid. If that was her retirement plan, what will happen to her? So that is why it's very important to join a registered retirement benefit scheme. So what happens is we have 3 different types of schemes. We have the government sponsored schemes. This is the civil servant scheme. So all the civil servants are in that scheme. And we also have the NSSF, which by law, every employee should be a member of NSSF. And of course, we know that even the contributions we make to NSSF are quite low. Now it's going to change because as you know now with the new NSSF Act, the amounts are changing every year and increasing. But there's one very important provision that was made in that NSSF Act, because maybe not everybody wants to take their retirement to NSSF. So there is the contracting out clause. So you can actually put the tier 1 in NSSF, and then the tier 2, which is the bulk of your retirement fund, you take it to a private scheme of your choice, so that you're able to track your money, you're able to check your statements frequently, you're able to be assured your money is safe. So we then also have the employer-sponsored schemes. These are the occupational schemes. Like I know for you guys, you have an employer scheme. So these employer schemes could be standalone, where you have the standard group retirement benefit scheme for all the staff, or you could also have now an umbrella scheme for smaller employers. You know, employers who have 10 employees, 20, instead of setting up their own scheme, they can come together. We have umbrella schemes in the industry where they can just plug in. And then they don't have to bother so much with the running of the scheme, but they just get updates. Then for the individuals, because we have so many people now who are self-employed, who are in their own business, we have what we call the individual retirement benefits plans. So you just look for the one you like and plug in. And let me tell you, in Aki, we give a lot of information. We even have books. Like there's a book we recently developed. This is one of the very few books in the market on retirement benefits. So you go to our website, www.akinsure.com. We have a lot of information there. Educate yourself. And then you'll see all the schemes. They are listed there. The ones that are registered with RBA, the ones that have been allowed by RBA to contract out of NSSF. You'll find all that information there, and then somebody can choose a scheme of their choice. So you start saving every month, and then you get your statement. Now the statements, you can get them online, so you can check your statement even on a monthly basis every time. So when you save, then we can, maybe I can pause there, and then we can come back to talk about how you draw your money. But I think one of the most important things I want to mention is that all the retirement funds managed by insurance companies are called guaranteed funds. The capital you put in is guaranteed. So whatever amounts you put, you've saved, is guaranteed. By law, there's a contract, and also you have a minimum rate of return that is also guaranteed. And how is this possible? Because under the Insurance Act, any company that deals with pension funds is required by law to maintain assets way above the funds, the members' funds they are holding.
I have a question. My question is, with all these products you've mentioned, how do you evaluate whether a pension product or life insurance plan is good or it's exploitative, especially with the rise of financial scams and you've got circles collapsing? People put money in there, saving the money in there, they're collapsing. You've got MMF funds. You've got NSSF. Auditor General the other day reported that 16 billion cannot be accounted for. There's also the issue of remittances to NSSF, where there are deductions being made, but by the time you're going to check what was getting into your account, there is actually nothing. By the time you start pursuing a company to figure out how is it that I was being deducted all these amounts and they're not being deposited. So there are all these financial scams and all these scams around this. So the question is, how can you tell that, this plan is good or this is going to exploit me? Because the fine print for many people, it comes with a lot of things. And for a lot of people, they're not able to digest everything around this product and what is hidden. How are you able to tell that this plan is good or this is going to exploit you, especially in light of all these scams?
Yeah, it's actually a very sad thing, and it leaves you feeling very uncomfortable, especially when you hear of like what you've said about the circle, what happened recently. I want to first address the issue of remittances. Yes, it's a big problem, and most of the let me say actually all of it is affecting mainly the government-related bodies. The university, the public universities and government bodies where monies, and maybe also counties, I think, where money is deducted and then it's not remitted to the pension scheme, which is a very sad thing. And I know it's something that RBA is engaging the government, and I think in the last budget, or what they're pushing now, they've even been given powers to sort of like wind up employers who are not remitting employees' benefits, where you've deducted my money and you're not remitting, and using that money for your operation. So maybe that I may not be able to really give an answer, because those are government bodies that are mainly having that problem. So the other thing, but what maybe we can say is that if you're in such an organization and you discover as employees that your monies are being deducted and they are not being remitted, I think as members you can come together and go to RBA. RBA can be able to stop the employer from continuing now to deduct. At least deal with what has already been deducted. So go to RBA, present the case so that now they can be stopped from at least deducting any further. And then as an employee, you can then take up an individual pension plan, which is a private scheme, very well regulated, and you can put that money that was being deducted there. At least that way you'll be taking a step towards safeguarding your retirement. Now, when it comes to the private schemes that are managed by RBA, one of the things I would say is the first step would be for everybody to go to visit the RBA website, so that number one, you see the schemes that they have registered and that they regulate. And what is and even when you go to our website, we also show you those schemes and then link you up to the RBA website. But in my opinion, and maybe you can also look at the audited accounts of the companies, but almost all, not let me say actually all the registered schemes, the ones that you can join, either the umbrella schemes or the private schemes, the individual pension plans, are very secure. Because this money is actually invested, and the funds are there. The bulk of those funds are invested in government bonds, and you can actually track, and you can. There's a rule of, if you want to withdraw your fund, it's 30 days. And if you have any problem, I know RBA is a regulator that has helped so many people. Like, if you have any problem with pension, you report to them within 7 days, your issue
and will be sorted out. I think it's also important to us to then look at practicality of some of these things, and we'll come back from this break and be able to do that. We're looking at retirement planning and why it actually is important, but then looking at the nitty-gritty of things and how they actually work. I see some questions coming in, and they're quite important ones for us to look at, so we'll do that when we come back from the break. Pauline Gathuri is a senior manager at Life Insurance Business Association of Kenya Insurers. We'll continue with this when we come back at 26 minutes to 9.
Start your
Oh, great!
This June, the biggest Club World Cup ever held is here. The 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. Recharge your subscription on your current bouquet for 2 months and get upgraded free to the next high bouquet for 60 days. A competition across the continents. 30 action-packed days of top-notch football from 32 best club teams from around the world. Recharge your subscription today to never miss a moment of a competition like never before. On the move, download StarTimes on and watch every goal, every moment, anytime, anywhere. StarTimes Sports, beyond passion. StarTimes, enjoy digital life.
Provides the inspiration for Leipzig.
This June on Next Superstar, the pressure is on. It's vocal battles, show-stopping performances, and edge-of-your-seat showdowns. Recharge your subscription on your current bouquet for 2 months and get upgraded to the next high bouquet for 60 days to watch the battle unfold on Rembo TV+. The search for Africa's next hitmaker just got hotter. Renew your subscription today and get upgraded to the next high bouquet for 2 months free. Who will judges Motive, Size 8, and King Kaka choose to move on to the next round? On the move, stream Next Superstar live on StarTimes on. Anytime, anywhere. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. On your side.
All right, taking a look at what's happening now, and let's take a quick look at the Thika Superhighway where traffic was doing a crazy thing earlier, and it still seems to be quite heavy as you get towards Survey and then out towards the Pangani Underpass, so that's going to be there for a minute. It's also quite something still on Kiambu Road as you get into the city. That's via Muthaiga Square. Also, as you're coming off of Waiaki Way, there's still some traffic as you then approach Westlands proper, but that will see you through towards the CBD after that with not too much of an issue. In and outbound traffic along Chiromo is also quite busy as you get into Monday. Lower Kabete through towards Spring Valley, and also traffic coming off of Limuru Road this morning. Usual suspects, with some traffic also coming off of Mombasa Road as you head out past Next Gen through towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. It's also busy on Langata Road as you come towards the city as well this morning. We're going to keep an eye on all of this. Keep it moving, guys, where you can talk to us if it does get sticky. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, empowering you to achieve your dreams and secure your future with our financial solutions across Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Mauritius. I&M Bank, on your
Mature,
side.
intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. This is the
planning for retirement and why it is important to do so. These are the conversations that we're having this morning, and we're doing it today with Pauline Gathuri. And some of the questions I think is interesting that come through, just giving off of information. Number one, 50,000 shillings is the average salary, is the for those who are working in Kenya, right? And according to KNBS, 23,000 shillings of this money is spent if you have the average household number of 4. That is 2 parents and 2 children. That's not taking into account other things like if you've got a domestic manager paying for those things. So about half of that money, this is pre-tax, goes towards taking care of those things. So the question then for people, Pauline, in practicality, is that what is left for you to then be able to put behind, especially when we are operating in a hand-to-mouth economy, that whatever you get, you spend, and then you pray to God that you get a little bit more to then be able to survive. That's the real picture, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So how do you operate within those parameters?
Thank you. Yes, actually, that's the reality on the ground. But even as you've said, okay, 23, so there's still half of that money. That's when I said start with as little as you can, but please start, because like with most of the individual pension plans, you can put in as little as 500 shillings per month, or even per, whenever you get money. This is not somewhere where you have you have like set amounts that you have to contribute, like 10,000. You can just contribute as little as possible as you get the money, because it is so crucial to build that that fund that you will use when you're not able to work anymore. And even in the reality we are living in, as things are this difficult, remember, like when we look at our society, the structures that used to take care of old people have disintegrated. So when you're old, maybe your children are not even in the country, or they are not able to take care of you. So who will take care of the old person you'll become? So that is why even with all these and that's why I say the productive stage of your life, you have so many obligations, but it's still the time also for you to save for your retirement, and very important to also build or buy a house or prepare, where I always keep asking yourself this question of, where will I live when I'm old? You know, where is it that where will I be living? You know, that question can make you even restructure your life
right now.
So that if you're going for a house where you're paying rent of 30 or 40K, you downgrade so that you start thinking of, where will I live? Where will I be living when I'm 65? Because there's nothing that is as sad as being 65 and you have no home, you have no house, and maybe you can't afford rent. Where will you go? So those are very difficult questions that we have to keep asking ourselves, even in these difficult times.
And still plan for them, notwithstanding.
Yes, plan for them. Yeah, because they're coming.
If I put in 20,000 shillings every month, and I get to the age of what's retirement, 65? 60. So the assumption is that in year 61, if I retire in December when I'm turning 60, the assumption is that come January, that I will start getting something.
Good. Then maybe I can just talk about now the product. The how you get your benefits, not products, how you get your benefits. So once you have now hit retirement age, you have built this fund, it has been growing, you've been getting your statement every other month, every year, and you're able to track how you're. And by the way, you can transfer your fund to another registered scheme. It's not that you have to stick to one. So at retirement, you have 4 options. Number 1 is something we call a pension or an annuity. And I'm sure where you come from, you guys are Nairobi born. Those who come from the village, if you look at your village
I come from the village.
Oh, you do, huh?
Yeah.
If you look at the village, who are the most comfortable people in the village? They are teachers and maybe civil servants. Why? Especially teachers, because they have a monthly income. Every month they go to the bank and draw their money. And that sets them apart from the other people. And it has also been, research has also showed that they actually have the longest, they live the longest, because they have that income, that cash flow that comes every month. So that option you have is called a pension or an annuity, and that one pays you an income. You can draw 1/3 of the money, and you now try your hand at business or whatever you want to do, but 2/3 goes to buy you that pension, and that pension is payable for the rest of your life until the day the person dies. And then if the person dies very early, there is normally a guaranteed period of about 10 or 15 years, depending on what you choose. That money can be paid to your dependents, either as a lump sum or the same way.
You mentioned about insurance being the safety net after the fact, but now here we are talking in terms of the information is not there. So there is the aspect that has also been asked here by one sonnet, and it's asking several questions in terms of, does now Aki and the stakeholders go out of their way to hold seminars and talks in rural areas? Because then again, majority of Kenyans are in the rural areas. Do you extend that to schools to talk to children in terms of the need of financial planning and planning for the future? And how do you also deal with the fact that Kenyans are struggling economy? How do you they're struggling economically? How do you convince them that despite the little you're getting, just start? My grandpa would say, chaka chaka, just start. Somehow you'll find your way. But how do you convince a Kenyan who's struggling economically to start equally just putting something aside for retirement?
Okay, thank you very so much, Dennis. Sorry, just to finish, you have that pension. You also have the income drawdown, where you can put your money as a fund, and you keep drawing a part of it every month. Then you can also get cash, which is highly discouraged because you might use all of it in 1 year. And then you also have the post-retirement medical fund.
Okay.
So you can also use part of that fund if you've been saving for the post-retirement medical fund. And in the tax laws amendment that I said, one of the benefits I forgot to mention is that the government has also given an additional tax benefit. You can save up to 15,000 per month for your post-retirement medical fund, a fund that you'll use at retirement, either to buy yourself a medical insurance or to pay the hospital bills directly or to pay the SHA fees. Yeah. So now, how do we? The question was on what is Aki doing to make people aware.
Yes.
We do a lot of trainings, a lot of public education campaigns, where we speak to everybody and tell them why it's really important to do this. And the RBA, the Retirement Benefits Retirement Authority, actually drives all over the country in all the counties.
Okay.
Speaking about this subject, if you go to their
across areas
in every they even do trainings in Wajir, campaigns in Wajir and road trips to just educate Kenyans and tell them, please, it's important to do this, and we partner with them. So we train people, we train employers, we have a lot of materials on our website, which we try and share with them, and they are free. And then we also engaged the government to try and introduce this financial education in the school curriculum. So that is one thing I know. It's a project that RBA is also really engaging the government with, so that from school level, from college level, tertiary education level, you are trained about why it's important to save for the future. So we are doing, and especially we have a lot of trainings which we put on our website, and I would even encourage, and even the RBA, they have open trainings for people. So just check the websites, educate yourself, and where you see a training, reach out to us, reach out to RBA and say, I would want to attend this. So the materials are there and the trainings are there. But of course, we've not done as much as we would want. We would want to still do more and partner with you guys to do a campaign.
Yeah.
Yes.
The thing about this culture, about this, is that it's a culture.
Yes.
That it's not something, from what I'm thinking, is that it's not something that you can say, well, you line up here and you drop the thing here and you get something at the end of the line. It's got to be a culture, isn't it? And that people have to get into the place where there's the understanding. It's like taking out insurance for your health. That something might happen later. So the culture is having a nest egg that you can now then take from later. Beyond putting money in a place, how do we create or start to get us to get into the culture of doing something? It's about how we eat, it's about how we dress, it's about how we entertain. It's a culture. How do we get to that point?
Thank you. You just reminded me of a story somebody was telling us about ants and grasshoppers. Maybe you've heard about it. If you observe the life of an ant, when the weather, the conditions are conducive, and I believe that is the productive stage of the ant, they are very busy. You will never find an idle ant that's just roaming around or sitting. It will be collecting food, looking for food, and taking it to its storage. And when the conditions change, that ant is safe, because then they get back to their bunkers and they have food to eat. Then grasshoppers, what happens with grasshoppers? And I believe many of us have that tendency, me included, to behave like the grasshoppers. When the environment is good, the grass is green, we are just jumping about, happy, eating, food is plenty. Then when the grass dries, what happens? All the grasshoppers die because they didn't have a storage. and the only thing that saves them by the grace of God is that they lay eggs there that hatch when the conditions again are good. So I think it's that the way you're saying, it's our culture and we have to change it. That's why we are talking about it, so that we move away from, we know that even if I have this little, I can still put something aside. In every Kenyan community, there's a proverb that says, what you do in your youth feeds the older you that you become. That one is there from long time, and it's in every community, that what you do when you're young and productive is what will feed the older person you will become. So I think it's a culture thing we have to keep, and at an individual level, just challenge yourself and ask yourself, by the way I am living today, when I'm at that stage, what will I do? And if you look at our society now, when you look at old people, your children have left, they've gone, or they are not even able to support you. What will you do? Where will you live? How will you be meeting your medical bills? So just to that can give me sense of reducing my expenses today to put something aside
for tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's an argument because you earlier said 40% retirees and what they save actually goes up to medical. We know about medical insurance companies in insuring the elderly is another whole story. And the question then here is, if someone, for example, has been saving up to just a rough estimate, let's say 2 million. 2 million in the next 5 or 10 years, today it may look like it's a lot. In 10 years, it will be something very, very small because the cost of living keeps going up. So how then should retirees prepare for, the health emergencies, the medical bills, in the inevitable old age as they're doing the pension planning?
Thank you so much. So, that's a very good question. So, like what we've said now, there is the post-retirement medical fund and products are there. Like, I don't know whether you've heard Dr. Odundo, the former CEO of RBA, speaking. That is one of the things he always says, please make sure you have sorted out your medical bills. And these are products that is there. Like, I remember him giving an example of where you pay a lump sum at retirement and you're covered for life. So those products are there. And what you do even with the products you get, the annuities and the pension I talked about, they have an escalation clause to protect you against inflation, so that it increases the amount benefit you're paid, increases every month. Because remember, this fund is not sitting idle. It's being invested, and so it's earning interest. Yeah. So, but that's a very good question, Dennis. So the most important thing is with this medical. Remember, when you build this fund, you have options, because you can either buy a medical cover, you can go for either an annual one, or you go for that one time and you're covered for life, or you can even use that money. I believe maybe our SHA will improve. You can use that money to pay your fees, to pay it's called the charges for the SHA, or you can even have your premiums, fund. If you've built it, it can be invested, and then with the interest you pay your premiums, or you even pay your medical bills directly from that fund. Yeah. So at the earlier years when you're more healthy, the fund is being invested, and then as you hit 70, maybe when the health challenges come, then you can actually pay from that fund. I don't know whether that's...
Yes, sure. My other question is, 80% of Kenya's workforce is the informal economy.
Yes.
And so what are really the practical or accessible pension solutions when somebody doesn't have a pay slip? And but two of that same question is, you will find if there's commitment, for example, you're paying 20,000 every month, then at some point you're actually not able to pay the 20,000. What I've seen also is the stress where there's a push, you please make sure you pay the 20,000, and you're not actually able to. And because this money is reinvested, there's also pressure on the person who's putting in this money to try and source for this 20,000, and know they're not able to. So there's also that stress to make the payment when you're out of a job or you're not able to pay. So how should somebody go about this? Realistically speaking, they don't have a pay slip, and there's the pressure where they're not able to continue paying the same amount they're paying the flexibilities around this.
Thank you so much. So thank you. Yeah, that's a very good question. So 80% of the people are in the informal sector. That's why we have that individual pension plan. Anybody can plug in. You get in as an individual. You're given your own individual contract and policy, and then you have your own statements. You're able to track. Now I know where that is coming from, of the pressure of I have to pay this money every month. Those are insurance, like the long-term education policies. With pension, this is a pure investment product. There is that no pressure of at every month I have to pay this. So if you're the individual pension plan, that's how they work. This month I could even just put 500. Then maybe I have a dry break of where I have no income. There is no, it doesn't affect your plan. Then I get a contract, or I get another job to do, and I make 100K. I put in that 100K there. So your statement at the end of the year will reflect every month. June, 0. August 0, September 100,000, and then the interest, the money starts earning interest from the day you put it in the account. So that one is not affected by any breaks. If you don't have an income, like you're self-employed, a break is okay, and then you put in money when you get a job. So that one is not structured like for an employee, where I have a monthly income. Yeah.
Pauline, there is a question that is being asked severally in terms of the rates that one is being paid upon retirement, especially when you talk about NSSF. And someone would say, I see no need of really investing, yet there is now the conversation we're having on the importance of saving on the same. So then how is AKI, say, and stakeholders together with government just working to address the rates upon which retirees get at the end?
Okay. So for NSSF, I agree the amounts are very little. For most people, after working for 30 plus years with the current contributions that we are paying, you end up with maybe 200K. At retirement. And that is why it is crucial for somebody to then have an additional retirement plan, either as an individual pension plan or with your employer. If your employer has that scheme, it's so crucial for you to join it. If your employer doesn't have it, please join the individual pension plan. If you're a small media enterprise, if you're a small to medium enterprise and you don't want to set up your own scheme for your employees, join the umbrella schemes. There are very many options in the industry. And because one of the things that you find, there are some myths, and that is why I think to also speak about that culture thing, there are some myths we think about and we rely on, and then at retirement, when we are old, we discover there are myths. The first one, people think the government will take care of me. In Kenya, no, unless you migrate to another country. Then, people, that is also a myth where people say, see me, I save NSSF. That will take care of me in retirement. My friend, it will be 200K. Then there's also the myth of, see, I have children, I've struggled to educate them, they will take care of me. Do you think that is practical today? Somebody said the Gen Zs and the ones coming after them do not even have it in their DNA to help anybody else. So you ujipange. Then people also say, in retirement, my benefit, my expenses will be very low. I won't be traveling. Really? They will be very high, because remember, your expenses do not retire. You're the only one who retires. The expenses are there, and you even need help with some of the things you could do for yourself. Then again, to speak to what do you said at the beginning, some people say, I'm very young. Now 30, I'm very young. Please, my friend, start. Because you will not know by the time you hit your productive age, and then all these responsibilities fall on you, time will go so fast. Before you can breathe again, you'll be 50. And so then others say it's too late. Now I am 40, I'm 45, I'm too late. It is not late. It's better you start just the way you said your grandfather said, please start now. It's better to get to age 60 with a smaller fund than with no fund at all.
Indeed.
Okay? Yes. And some people think I can keep working forever. when you are young and strong, you think like that. But when you talk to a 65-year-old, they tell you, you cannot be able to do that.
You won't be able to.
Yeah. And then, the other one, you talked about the myth. It's better to invest in other vehicles, like I can buy a house, rent it out, I can have a circle, I can have a money market. Have those, but those are not for your retirement, because anything interfering with them, then you're left exposed. Yeah.
Even as you wind this down, Pauline, you talk about starting early, and then the places where you can capture a lot of these minds to start to form a culture is when they are still in school, and I'm not even talking about tertiary. I'm talking about formative year school. What everybody now calls comprehensive school, primary school, for purposes of this. How far can we make sure that those conversations are happening at the school level, really quickly?
Okay. Yeah, so just as I've mentioned, the regulator, RBA, Retirement Benefits Authority, I know they are on that project, and they're engaging the government so that we have financial literacy, not only about retirement, even about other things. We also need financial. There's a research I saw where Kenya is among the countries with the poorest, do I say poorest or lowest financial literacy? Not financial literacy as we don't know how to manage our money. We believe in, I eat everything today.
So I can make more tomorrow.
Yes. I think it's something that you said that speaks to our culture. And as you've rightly said, the best way to capture it is from, at that stage when children are taught that, then they grow with that information. But even for us, we can still change.
Indeed.
Yes.
We can.
Yes.
Pauline Gathuri is a senior manager at Life Insurance Business Association of Kenya Insurers, has been our guest this hour. Retirement planning and why it's important. Thank you so much. Quite refreshing this morning, and for us to also remember that and to make plans towards it. And if you already are, keep at it. Thank you so much for doing this with us this morning.
Thank you so much. So maybe I'll just request that members can visit the AKI website, can reach out to us for any information they need. We are very willing to guide them, and we do a lot of trainings. We can share the materials with them. We can direct them to RBA for further information. Yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for sharing. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
I'm Ndu Okoh. This is Budget Week, and all eyes are on the 2025-2026 National Budget. On Thursday this week, the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi will present his first budget since being appointed. But there is trouble. A 253 billion shillings revenue shortfall reported in April has left a massive gap, and the Finance Bill 2025 is only expected to raise 25 to 30 billion shillings in new taxes, with 876.1 billion shillings deficit to tackle. Kenyans are worried about new taxes pushing up food and healthcare costs. Now, a 13-year-old girl from Yatia village, Baringo North, has been found alive and well 3 days after she was allegedly abducted. The girl was reportedly abducted by two men from Tiati who forced her to walk more than 100 kilometers to Kapedo West, while her two brothers, who were also abducted, were abandoned along the way. Baringo County Commissioner Stephen Sangolo said the girl was rescued following a manhunt involving police officers, Red Cross and Tiati area chiefs.
We get the girl. We have brought her to hospital here for checkup, both medical and also psychosocial support, because working for 3 days, day and night, out of parents and in foreign hands is also not an easy thing. So she'll get psychosocial support here, the hospital, and also from Red Cross, and then the medicals. After which, we want to reunite her with the parents. We have the biological father who is with us here, and we have also gone to bring the mother so that we can reunite them, and we can also get more insights from the family. Iwapo kuna mizozo katika familia, tuweze kuzisuluhisha kwa njia ambayo ni mzuri, kwa sababu this is a sort of a family issue between families, which led to abduction of the girl.
And Labour Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua now says areas that refused to support President William Ruto won't benefit from the current government. Speaking as if he was hitting at Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka to join government, Mutua has said the decision will help the Ukambani community achieve political progress. Speaking in Wote, Makueni County, the CS also said it will be very difficult for opposition leaders to unseat Ruto in the next elections.
Where are we going? Are we going to stick where we are? Are we going to change course? Are we going to change course and say, you have served us well, we respect you, but we do not agree with you in this? Ruto won akiwa nje ya serikali. Nje ya serikali, wakiwa na shujaa pale, wanajiita Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua, wote wakiwa hapo. Wameshikilia serikali, big state. Ruto akawashinda. Wakasema ni rigging. When did a person outside the government be able to rig? Wale wako ndani ndio wanajua rigging. Sasa Ruto alishinda akiwa nje, sasa Ruto yuko ndani. Na hiyo deep state ulikuwa nasema.
And finally, 2 suspects found with 6 elephant tusks in Turkana County are expected to appear in court today to answer 2 charges of illegal possession of the tusks. Francis Yoro, 55, and Geoffrey Nakure, 27, were found with the tusks in Monti area on the Kalokol Lodwar Road following a tip-off from the public. Now, according to Section 92 of the KW, the Kenya Wildlife Conservation and Management Act 2013, it provides for penalties for offences relating to endangered or threatened species that range from a fine of 20 million shillings, life imprisonment, or both for any person found guilty of unlawfully killing wildlife. That's the News Wire. I'm Lea Umaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing policy of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, on your side.
All right, taking a look at what's happening in traffic at a few minutes after 9 o'clock, and it's still pretty busy in the city coming into Monday. And let's just take a quick look at the Thika Superhighway, which was crazy earlier on, and we're still seeing some traffic as you come through towards Survey. On Mombasa Road, it is quite crazy as you come in all the way from the Likoni interchange, and you find your way on Mombasa Road heading into the Nyayo Stadium direction. That's busy. Langata Road, not too bad, but we're seeing some traffic then coming off of Nyayo Stadium roundabout, Aerodrome, and then heading towards Huru Highway. Huru Highway then from that junction through towards Haile Selassie at the junction is very, very busy. Still continues around Westlands, coming in from Lower Kabete towards Spring Valley. And that looks like it'll just do the last of the mop-up for traffic this morning, but we'll keep an eye on all of this, hoping to keep things moving. We'll talk Spice FM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, empowering you to achieve your dreams and secure your future with our financial solutions across Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Mauritius. I&M Bank, on your side.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
8 minutes after 9 o'clock, and this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, and into the final hour this morning. And we said we will not stop having the conversation about what affects the most vulnerable in society. Amongst those most vulnerable are children, and then even at whatever level of when they get their education. Remember, students in school are children until 18, and even those who then go on to further their education, though they may not be children according to definitions, are still within the education sector. And sadly, it looks as though across board there seems to be an issue whenever we look at the education situation. And so we'll continue talking about it. We will continue to speak about it. We will continue to look for the solutions while we can. And we're going to further that conversation this morning. Ndu Okoh is an education expert and director of Tunza Mtoto Coalition. We're looking at now the issue of free education, whether it's free or not, and we'll touch on rethinking Kenya's education revolution. Janet, good morning.
Good morning, Ndu.
How are you?
I am all right, thank you.
You're in one piece.
I am.
You're here.
I can confirm.
Okay. Because we hear things.
I know.
So we need to confirm that the boogeyman hasn't gotten you, and that you're here, and we can be bold to speak.
No, it's part of the struggle. It's part
Absolutely.
of the struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we refuse to be silent when anybody is trying to defend education. We shall not be silenced.
Janet Okoh's here, and for all intents and purposes of this conversation, just to say that we are saying that we're glad that you're safe for a reason, and anybody can deduce from that, right? Before we get into our conversations for this morning, Dennis is going to share today's proverb with you and where it's from, and then we'd like your interpretation of that.
The proverb comes from Uganda, and Uganda has around 50 ethnic groups, and one of the largest include the Baganda, Banyankole, Acholi, Basoga, and Bakega. But Ugandans have this dance, and based off what I was just reading online, some of the best dancers are when they shake their waist, are actually men. Ugandan men actually know how to shake their waist, so it's just for conversation piece. Yes, but let's go to a proverb. Ndu, you want to say something? Okay, sawa. Our proverb: a person who has not traveled thinks their mother is the best cook. A person who has not traveled thinks their mother is the best cook. What do you make of that?
Oh yeah. Let me not say what I wanted to say, but it's rather a more straightforward proverb, especially revolving around food. I'm sure everybody has had some experience with it, and so it's not a very difficult one to decode. But I think for me, it's about exposure, and I like talking about exposure as to especially how it relates to things that we feel very personal about. Some of us feel very personal about our tribes, and some of us think that just because we belong to a particular tribe, our tribe is superior. And please get out there and just sample, see what other people do and what other people practice, and then you will realize no, they are great people out here. And I say that because I'm very proud of intermarriages, because if you listen to the stereotypes that people push around, sometimes you listen to someone and you wonder, you just needed to travel just a little, not outside the country. Just take a bus. Take a bus and
I keep saying just Kitengela. Don't even know that.
No. Yeah, because it's crazy how people hold certain stereotypes and how people treat other people as inferior just for the mere reason that you were born in a certain region. No, you just need to travel a little.
There's a tribe that showed up June 25th who said we are tribeless and we are leaderless. And look at the change they brought about.
That is the revolution that we are talking about. It has so much rubbish. Those people that hang on to tribes. And I can bet you, I think now the majority, because I don't know that my children either know whether they are Luo or they are Kikuyu. And I'm very proud about that. And it limits my husband and I from talking about the way watu wa Mlima would want to speak Mlima, and because there is no place, there is no audience, no one appreciates.
Well, there you go, and those are the truths, isn't it?
True.
the last time we had a conversation with you, we then went on to have another conversation around education, and we've been trying to do this as often as we can, because we are not staring a disaster in the eye. We are not staring and saying it's coming. We are living in it at the moment, and whether we are going to be accused of being sensationalist or not, so be it. That's fine. I think that when it comes to the children and the education, again, as the very pillars of society, moving forward, that we cannot play Russian roulette with their future. And unfortunately, it seems as though we've been doing just that. There are certain things that have come out in the last couple of days, and the Cabinet Secretary for Education has been quite forthright, where he has basically said, we do not have money to fund education in the manner in which it is currently on paper and the manner in which we would like to do. He has basically said this. No. He has accepted the fact that there is 60 billion shillings owed. He has accepted the fact that they just don't have enough money to go around. He has acknowledged that these issues exist. Now, what we didn't expect to come from that acknowledgement was the possibility of defunding education even further, whereby we talk about exams will not or will be paid for. We're still not sure what's going to happen with that. But now we are looking at a time where 20 years after free education was established, that we could be looking at a place where we are going to ask Kenya's parents to start to pay school fees again, because there is no money. That's where we are today. Your take?
You know, when I watched the CS for education, I'm really sweating in trying to put up with the drama that the members of parliament were trying to show up. I say drama because I am not expecting someone like Honorable Meli to be asking the kinds of questions that he was asking the CS. Why? Because Honorable Meli has hung around for the longest time. He has chaired the education committee even when things were working out. And for me to listen to him asking the minister some questions, I would call that harassment. This drama that members of parliament subject people to is so much uncalled for. Meli knows where the money is. Meli knows the person who is making the decisions to send money to schools. Meli knows that it is Bitok who is making those decisions. It is William Ruto that is making those decisions. So sometimes stop harassing professionals. And I don't know if the minister still has his job, because it's very hard for a CS education to admit that we do not have the money. You know, probably that was not the brief. But out of the pressure and out of really wanting to be honest and telling Kenyans, look, people, I mean, you know, this is the math that I can say, and this is the math that I can do. But then, and we have said severally that the decision of funding education is not made at the Ministry of Education. Let Kenyans know that decision is not for Waziri Ogamba. It is not. That is a decision for the president. It is the president who decides what is my legacy. What priorities do I want to engage in? And number two, at what point do we start telling Kenyans that we do not have money? These are the same Kenyans that it is William Ruto who has decided that now empowerment, some moribund things called empowerment, have a higher profile now than funding education. And I want to tell him today, there is no empowerment program more than a well-resourced school, more than a trained teacher, and a child with hope. Every other thing you're doing is called shenanigans. It is for your political expediency. You are the only person that knows the criteria of the people you're taking to those posho meals. You're the only person who knows the source of this money for buying those posho meals and all those sewing machines. Is that what Kenyans have told you they needed? And the answer is no. Do things for your siasa. We understand you. But hey, we refuse, especially when we know this is our money. This is tax money that we are speaking about. We are not asking for his benevolence. No. This is tax money that we are speaking to. In fact, money which he has even obtained by force from Kenyans. Some Kenyans don't want to be taxed in the manner that they are taxed. But do they have a choice? They don't have a choice. So you decide to tax us by force, and then you decide to take another motivational book from where you want to run this country. No, we are insisting. We decided as Kenyans in the year of the Lord 2010, and we gave ourselves a constitution. We do not want anybody to think of what transforming this country would look like. Transforming this country looks like remaining faithful to the constitution that we gave to ourselves.
Okay. When we talk about, I want to, for purposes of definition, because I think sometimes we do get crossed lines. When we talk about free education, when we say free, that means free to the person who is sending this child to school. That if as a parent you send your child to school, there is nothing coming out of your pocket for this child to be in school. The government, through whether it is a subsidy manner or making payments directly to schools, then your children, what they need to do is leave their homes and go to school. That is what we mean by free education, is it not?
Free does not mean no cost. No.
Okay.
Free does not mean no cost.
Okay.
But it costs to who? We are saying that the constitution that we gave to ourselves has indicated that there is no child that should pay anything to access basic education. The Basic Education Act goes further to call it compulsory. It means that anybody that has a child in the house right now as we are speaking, it is going towards 9:20. If you have a child in the house right now, you are committing an offense. And you ought to be arrested and arraigned in court for why you are not implementing the law. So some of these things are so serious. And when we see the simplicity and you know, and the way the president is going around these issues, you almost want to ask him, what is your legacy? What legacy do you want to leave behind? We cannot sit here and educate him about what education can do. We have evidence. We saw. And I want to tell him these Gen Zs that he's struggling with is as a result of another man that believed in education and put every child in this country to school. It is very hard, by the way, for you to walk around and see a Form 4 dropout, like in the last 3 years or so. You hardly got. In fact, there was a time in this country where people did not have house helps because there were no people that were falling out at Form 2, Form 1, you know, like it were norm in the past. It got to that point. It is a place where we are proud to have been, and it is a place where we refuse to make any step back because it will amount to injustice. Education is an equalizer. We are not we are not saying that if everyone here on this table could give an account of themselves, I can at least say that I know so many children that I went to school with, but I came from a family of privilege. My father was a teacher, you know, and so that is how he managed to, because that time education was not free. There was school fees and so on. And so I know so many of very brilliant children that are my age mates that we went to school together that dropped out at class 8. They did not make it to Form 1, 2, and 3. It is not that I'm extraordinary or I'm more intelligent than anybody else, but my parents gave me an opportunity. That is what we are saying. No, it should not be about those who have against those who have not. This is a universal right. And for the avoidance of doubt, this is not a Kenyan issue. It is an international declaration. Education is a human right. So we are not really, you know, I get so tired of sitting to argue with people and looking like we are begging. We are saying, no, we have to get to a place as Kenyans and wonder, how are we running? How is this country being run? I listened to the interview with is it AKI, brilliant lady that has left here. And she put a thought in my mind. She said, if you think that your retirement benefits are not being managed well, you can go to, she said, RBA.
Yes.
The authority. And petition the authority. And the authority, there's something, she said that there's something that the authority can do. The authority can ask you to stop making
those payments,
is it? And at least so that now we deal with the bulk of what now you had remitted, but has stopped you from further wasting your money. And I wondered, this is our money, this is our tax money that is being mismanaged right in our sight. Can we petition ourselves also? We do not want to continue funding somebody who does not want to take money where we have all agreed. He has his priorities. Let him do that with his money. When we get a president who will be ready to do what the citizens of this country want, we are happy to continue paying taxes. Can we have that option?
And Janet, you bring something in terms of a priority. And when we talk about education and the current dispensation, we go back to during the campaign period and the manifesto and the promises that the president said.
Yes.
And I'll just go through that. He said he will bridge the teacher shortage gap of 116,000 within 2 financial years. And then there is the issue of improving capacity of day secondary schools to guarantee access to quality education and reduce the cost of education. It is not me. It is what he said in his manifesto. But here we are today where we say the funds that he said he would put in place to ensure that free education is funded is no longer there. Now we're talking about we're unable to fund exams. We're talking about an education system who's in the last budget got the highest allocation of 634 billion shillings. 56 billion. And we speak today in terms of the pending bills that do exist. And one asks the question, Mr. President, where did you lose the priority that education is important for the children of Kenya?
No, I think that when there are some sectors that really require thought. Every morning when you wake up in education and health, there's usually just something new that you need to either interrogate the policy further, but it appears for me in this government that people are not thinking. And thinking is not to mean that they don't have ability to think. No, it's like they're not settling down to really interrogate. Because education is not something that you say, today we are doing this. No, you probably need a settled 3-year or 4-year plan to say that this is what we are doing. So that if you think about the effects of what Mwai Kibaki did, he did not even realize those fruits in the 5 years or in the 4 years. We are now living the effects of that investment and that sacrifice that someone else did. And so when you think about the effect of a child dropping out of school today, and then there is all this maneuvering, and the mother goes to plead, and that child has wasted a week.
Indeed.
They've probably wasted two weeks of learning. So when I'm looking at the wastage of resources, I am not just looking about the 656 billion Kenya shillings. I am wondering, that 656 billion Kenya shillings, is it being put to generate the quality that it ought to give us? Why? Because there is no continuity of it. One time it comes, the other moment it doesn't come. Teachers are keeping learners in school just for the sake of it, because when you send away learners, you will give the government a bad name. So they'd rather all be here, even that we don't have chalk, even that we don't have textbook, they'd rather just be here. And I am asking the president for sure, is this your legacy? Is this your legacy? Why I refuse to buy the narrative about fiscal space and all this yada yada yada, is we are seeing empowerment. There are some things that are called empowerment that are now coming up to compete with non-sustainable and practiced efforts that can pull this country from every corner without discrimination. But we are now seeing empowerment has money. Nobody is talking about fiscal space, debt distress when it comes to buying portion mills and swing machines and tractors and wheelbarrows.
There's money there.
There's money. There's money for that. And at that particular point in time, nobody seems to be talking about it. And I'm wondering, where, as you rightly saying, fidelity to your own manifesto that you actually put up. I had actually never read it. I'm not a believer in political party manifestos. I am a strong believer in the Constitution. Because there is no document in this country that is stronger, and it captures all our aspirations that the Constitution does. And so looking at the president today, and I would want him to have these conversations and realize I am lifting this conversation to the level of president, because there is nobody else. Nobody else has an explanation as to why 4.3 billion today has been slashed from the education budget. No one has an explanation as to why 600 billion Kenya shillings has been slashed from the school feeding program. But someone has an explanation as to why Nairobi will be spending 1.2 billion shillings on school funding, on school feeding program.
School feeding, the money that has been slashed is 600 million.
600 million.
Yes.
So if we are saying that we are slashing the school feeding program, why is Nairobi alone spending 1.2 billion on school feeding? Is Nairobi more special? Does Nairobi have more resources than all of us? Points to one thing. People are not thinking. This is not a coordinated thought process of what exactly do we want to do at the end of our 5 years. What is our legacy? What are we contributing to the larger good? Have we thought about these children 10 years to come? I know for a fact in this country there is a child, especially in northeastern and those spaces, where food means everything to those children. If you think about someone stopping food, but to go and take for that mother a wheelbarrow or a sewing machine, just show me what is witchcraft.
Janet, let's try rise above this noise. And I'm just thinking, I'm looking at the capitation cuts and all this versus performance in the education sector. So all these things were not planned for, and suddenly there is money being now reallocated as if there was no plan. Why do you think this was not taken care of in the initial national budget? Is it that there is an end game to this? Because the 600 million that has been proposed to be reallocated to do the current DP's residence. So there's money for that. There is a thought for something like that. But when it comes to education, which is really key, all of a sudden it's almost like, oh, snap, we didn't factor in the money for this. What do you think is the end game? Just rising above all this noise. What do you think is going on?
It is not fair, and that is why I'm saying that we really have to rise up to a more serious conversation than one of throwing words at each other or to each other. And we wonder, what is our place? What is our place as citizens, especially considering, this is our money. I don't know why. This is our money. Yes. It is our money for starters. It is our money for starters. And you have to realize when we are in 2025, just rolling into 2026. So we are beginning politics. So a lot of these projects that you're likely to see right now having budgets are political expediency. There is no repairs of State House. There is just budgets to be available for handout seekers so that you are able to sit 5,000 people and dish 5,000 to each and everybody. That is how someone sits down and thinks that is how they want to use our money, and that is how they want to run our country.
So what do you think is the expected effect of these cuts on performance in public schools? Especially of large class sizes, fewer teaching resources. What is the eventual effect of this?
I said earlier that we are not going to feel the effect tomorrow. We will not even feel the effect next year. But we will. Every household will feel this effect for an enduring long time. Because by the time there are no resources in a school, by the time the head teachers of this country are as scared as they are, they cannot send anybody home because you'll give the government a bad name. So everybody folds their hands.
Sure.
And to look at everybody. So if your child gets a D+, if a child gets a D, if your child does not get enough competences as they would have, we collectively lose as a nation. Because remember, this is someone that we want to come and contribute to the conversations we are having nationally. I'm very excited about the Gen Z because the kind of quality of conversations they brought, they were never seen before. You cannot disassociate the effect of the education that they have gone through from the kind of citizens that they have become. And so I'm saying the effect that why William might escape without punishment is because it is not, education is not like a hospital issue where there is no drug, someone dies. No one is going to die because there is no teacher. No one is going to die because they don't have a textbook. But surely their dreams shall die.
But it's going to be a different kind of death, and that's
that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
The only thing that is not as alarming is because it doesn't scream, it doesn't shout, it doesn't prick the emotional person as it were if it were a medical emergency.
Let's look at something like this because we're going to break in just a little bit. But when we talk about the defunding of education, because you can do whatever you need to do. Put a hat on a pig, it's still a pig, right? We are also in a place where the curriculum is in transition, right? And there are certain things that need to be done. So now if we're in comprehensive school and then we get to lower secondary school and then we get to upper, junior school, all of whatever names you want to give it, and then change the whole system and call it, competency-based education. Today, and I'm saying today, Monday, the 9th of June, grade 9 learners begin to pick their pathways for which they will get into next year, grade 10. Now, if you go into the STEM pathway, which we're likely to see that 60 to 70% of the selection will be into STEM. What does that mean? That every institution which offers STEM will have to have every kind of equipment for those science and math courses. It is not a please can we do it tomorrow. It is we have to do it now because you offer the education, right?
Yeah.
So when we are talking about fund, it seems as though it's working at cross purposes with itself, because here we are saying that these things are happening concurrently, whereby we're also defunding the programs across board. Because when we say that exams, you're going to say parents pay for that. When we're saying the likelihood of you not offering this to children anymore, how does it affect the programs for which an entire party went through the country to put these reforms in place in the first? How do we work? Because it seems counterproductive, counterintuitive, all at the same time. How can it actually happen? How can it work?
I do not understand, because, the loss is that since 2003, and for about 10, 15 years, we were dealing with issues of access. Sort of let everybody come back to school, and then we were dealing with the emergencies of the class sizes that were 40 now have 80.
Yes.
I know of schools in Nairobi that had 112, so we were now dealing with the emergencies of saying, how do we expand, how do we, but at least can every child be inside something called a school? Those were the emergencies that we were dealing with. And just when we were settling in to start now talking about quality, now we've achieved so much in access. Can we now start discussing quality? And you saw a lot of reports from NGOs. I remember our children learning, literally civil society organizations going to schools and administering, tests to just wonder, at grade 3, have you achieved the competencies that you ought to? And a lot of thinking went into wondering, now what else do we need to do? And a conversation started about, we do not think that our curriculum really is taking us to where we ought to go. We do not think that it is serving everyone well. We do not think that it is responding to every child's need. And you can almost tell how the journey has gone. And we have enjoyed stability. We have enjoyed the stability in the sector, and even allowing people to sit down and craft together the competency-based curriculum, funding KICD to develop everything, and so on. And then we get to this place where it's sort of someone just presses a button, and they decide from nowhere. No, with this one, I think this way, boss. You don't think for everybody, please. Even if you are sharp, you are not gifted in everything. Can you let people also advise you? Can you listen for once when people tell you, no, at this particular point in time, we needed the stability of the sector, every stability that we could get for the sector, because these are children's lives that we are talking about. We do not want to experiment. We want a stable sector that is thinking, we are now going to grade 9. What are the pathways? Sort of that calm. And when people say, we surely need some little more resources for this CBC, it is actually true. So it is paradoxical that you tell us that you're supporting the competency-based curriculum and you are defunding
education at the same time.
You're defunding. You don't even appreciate. And we even gave a scenario. We said some of these reforms that have come right now, were they even during our time? You remember when Moi introduced all these subjects, art and craft and so much. All that was very well intentioned, by the way. But the funding was there, Waterloo.
Implementation.
The implementation. And it is not implementation in terms of everything else. It is implementation in terms of funding. We were asked to adjust ourselves to art and craft. But that particular teacher did not know how to make a stool herself, did not even know what a leg is. We ended up buying stools. We bought stools and we brought for them for the assessment. And we said, and it is well documented, that if we do not fund CBC, we will still end up there. And what happened to the 844, as it were? They went reducing. No, we do not have the resources. Let's do away with art and craft. We do not have resources. Let's do away with music. So we went back and went back and went back until we realized, no, we have gone back to where we were. Why were we coming here? So I want to wonder sometimes that it is said that even if you're advised, you need not take the advice.
You don't have to take everything that
you don't have to take to take the advice. And so I would wonder, why is the advisor staying put? Therefore, if in every turn you are not utilizing any advice that anyone gives you, probably you could save the taxpayer that little money so that then you can remain yourself. We see you and we know you do not receive advice from anybody because you actually do not need it. But I can bet you from where I sit, the effect of William Ruto's hand in education will be felt from very far. I do not know, and I have not seen, and I have existed in this space, any minister who stares at the camera and tells Kenyans, or any members of the country for that matter, that there is no money to fund education.
Until last week.
Until last week, I have seen it. I have not seen. That is one. We saw the week before, CS Mbadi telling us that there is no money to fund examinations. You know, the boldness must have come from somewhere. And this is why I always say, tone at the top. It is just that William Ruto is not as bold as they are, because they are handmen. They are sent. Go and say this. Let him face Kenyans and tell Kenyans, I am not able to fund education.
And see what will happen.
And see what will happen. Because you will not, we are not going to watch you fund everything else apart from what is important. What is important? It is not me saying that it is important. It is that constitution that you swore that you're going to protect. Yes. We are not going to allow you not to fund children, but to watch you buy portion meals and sewing machines and all manner of things using our money.
That's a good place to take a break on this morning. Janet Okoh is our guest this hour, and we're looking around about, is it possible that it will get to a time where parents are asked to dig a little bit deeper into their pockets so that children can go to school? It's all happening on the day when grade 9s are making the selection as to which pathways they'll take into 2026, in that year when they become grade 10s. The education issue is another big one that we are facing this morning. We'll take a break and come back after this. Don't go away at 21 minutes to 10.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This June on Next Superstar, the pressure is on. It's vocal battles, show-stopping performances, and edge-of-your-seat showdowns. Recharge your subscription on your current bouquet for 2 months and get upgraded to the next high bouquet for 60 days to watch the battle unfold on Rainbow TV+. The search for Africa's next hit maker just got hotter. Renew your subscription today and get upgraded to the next high bouquet for 2 months free. Who will judges Motive, Size 8, and King Kaka choose to move on to the next round? On the move, stream Next Superstar live on StarTimes On. Anytime, anywhere. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. On your side.
All right, taking a look what's happening with traffic this morning. Some of that is busy, still coming off the Thika Superhighway. We'll think we'll be doing okay as we get through this particular hour. It's still heavy as you get towards Survey. Kiambu Road still with some traffic as you come in from that northern bypass. And then also as you come off of Limuru Road, we're still having some traffic here as well. It is busy as you come off of Ngong Road, but it's moving, so not too bad. Kikuyu Road, then heading towards Naivasha Road, give you some busyness there. So we're keeping an eye on all of this. We'll keep it moving, won't we? Let's see what happens through the morning. Talk to us, SpiceFM KE on X.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, empowering you to achieve your dreams and secure your future with our financial solutions across Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Mauritius. I&M Bank, on your
Mature,
side.
intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Janet Okoh is an education expert and director of Tunza Mtoto Coalition. And we're looking at free at what cost? And even as we have difficult conversations this morning and asking questions around then essentially what would happen. We talked about this before, but as you get to the education that we speak of, we're looking at primary education. We're looking also at secondary education, lower to upper. And then beyond that, we're going to get to university education, whereby they're struggling too. And the Working Party had reforms. And of course, that's when we saw the funding and what needed to happen with that. But it seems as though that has not been sorted out just yet, Janet.
And the tragedy that we have right now is that we do not have people that sit down and actually think and plan. You have everybody on the road shows, and you know, just noise, and it is so soon. But those in government need to realize that the people's lives need to go on. I want to talk about the new funding model and wonder. We are now waiting for another crisis to come. We're waiting for a crisis because when we'll start admitting the cohort, we are not sure yet. Are we still going on with the new funding model, or where exactly are we? How much is government going to pay? And the closest we came to knowing that government has got no idea is when we saw COOPS opening the portal and telling people you can select courses.
Yes.
But they have not put there the cost of programs. That is lack of accountability. Are you afraid? Is the government afraid to say that we have not finished thinking? I have not experienced this dinosaur sort of thinking that you actually need 6 months to sort out something. But you know why? Because the government wants to operate in crisis. Because in crisis, I know, is where you can now be able to blackmail children. You kill a few, so that then you can silence others. But the real thing is you do not want to fund education. And so you're throwing the bulk of burden to the parents. And that is why you're seeing the university students saying, no, we cannot. By the time someone is a university student, they are no longer a child.
Yes.
They appreciate the dynamics of their home. They appreciate that my mother cannot be able to pay. Sometimes some of them have even written and said, I can drop out of school a little so that I join my mother in her struggle. Because if your mother is for example, how Mama Wakufua, and they are washing even in our houses, how do you expect that woman to raise an amount of 300,000 of the fee structures that have been flying, all over the place? And the answer is no, they will not do that. But then we sat down through that committee that was written. Yes. Anyway, there was no point of putting it up in the first place because the recommendations of it have not been implemented, and I am not seeing anybody interested in implementing them. But that will not make some of us keep quiet. We will still continue telling the government on this one for university education, you are wrong. You have not thought about what exactly is ailing our education system. And even when you have thought about it, you do not have the wherewithal, the boldness to confront challenges. And we have seen education sector where leaders have confronted what ailed the education sector in the first place. If we were having turncoats like the way we do, we would still not have been able to crack the exam cheating. But we saw someone sitting at the helm of it and saying, no, this madness has to come to an end. You know what is happening in universities? And when the president sat down, he called the vice chancellors and he was told universities are in debt and da. And because he doesn't have much time, because of course he has to attend the next church service and he has to be on some roadshow and in some market, he doesn't have time to sit down and wonder, what exactly are you guys saying? Universities are in debt. Debts that did what? Debts that did what? Show me the audit reports. No one has time for that. We are not going to throw money at our problems. And parents of this country do not have money to throw at universities that got broke. They got broke and no one knows they got broke doing what. They went for buying sprees. They bought buildings where they bought. Liquidate. Sell those buildings. Pay up your debts. Because by the time you want to say that the other lie is a new funding model. And what did the new funding model do? A few people sat together on a table like this one and they decided, let us develop a few indicators so that then we are going to rank you and call you are band 1, you are band 2. And we are saying this sector has run. Can we build on the ideas that have existed for a long time? This issue of saying, for example, let me give an example with a tea picker from Bomet. A tea picker who has 3 acres of land in Bomet. They are picking their tea, they have their cow, they are living in their own house. But because they are not known by the government means they do not pay tax. Because they don't pay tax, then they are not in the government radar. But a primary school teacher teaching here in Kangemi is known to a government. They pay tax. So the government, probably using that indicator, calls you as a teacher, you have more wherewithal than a farmer in Bomet. The government forgets that you are not living in your own house. You're paying rent here in Kangemi. This tea picker is staying in their own house. So by common man's level, who is better? Is it a farmer who owns 3 acres in Bomet and they're picking their tea, or is it this primary school teacher?
Yeah.
So how do you then put the primary school teacher's child to a level where they now they're in a lower band, so they have to pay more in the universities, and this one for Bomet, because they're not known by the government. Government doesn't have any of their data. You know where government should have begun? We also long for a situation where we will target everyone once. We would want to use the resources that we have properly. But you don't wake up one day and decide, because we don't have money, we have to get a name, we have to get something. No, you first begin by doing the work. Do the work. Get all the data of the parents. Understand their economic situations, so that then we are making decisions and not inconveniencing other people. And that is what is ailing our funding model. The next big thing that is ailing our funding model is a conversation about the cost of programs in our universities. And we have said this, and we will continue to tell William Ruto, it does not cost 720,000 shillings to do any medical course in this country. It only costs 480 in Makerere here. It costs 400 in Daystar, everywhere. Why are our public universities charging our parents an arm and a leg?
Okay, but why?
That is what I'm asking. Why? Because nobody is willing to do the dirty work. Get into the accountability problems. How do you explain that Nairobi University is having for example, 9.8 billion? And these are reports that came to the task force. Your entire income is 9.8 billion. You're using 9.6 on staff. Who does that? What company operates like that? Why aren't we interested in having conversations about what makes economic sense for us? Why are we operating as if it is a market, just because there are inputs, we just put in inputs, we just put it. It is not like that. We must be competitive. We must give costs that really make sense, because the idea, even beyond universities, is access. Can we make as many young people as possible access education and training? But we cannot give universities blank checks. The other conversation, and parents of university students really need to listen, and listen carefully, because you're parents of adults. It does not mean that you will not take part in these conversations. It is government that negotiates these CBAs. Parents are never involved. So parents will not be charged for people who negotiate CBAs for political expediency. You want the lecturers' vote, so at that electioneering here, you sit them on a table, and then you have a conversation, you raise their salaries to please them, and then you come and charge the parents. Who does that? Can the government start respecting the people who are fueling this government? Can we see a government that respects the parents of this country? Can we see a government that respects the taxpayers? When you're making decisions, it is not everything about the vote. It is not everything about the vote. It is everything about the aspirations of the constitution. How many more youth? I have a text here which it is very emotional. A young man texting me, he's doing nothing in Eldoret. They don't have 100 shillings to eat. Then you want to wonder with me why the young people are committing suicide in this country. Why, if you don't eat today, you don't eat tomorrow? How will you even go to school? And then you have government officers sitting on tables doing nothing apart from shouting on microphones on rooftops of cars. It is not acceptable. It isn't acceptable.
Janet, what will it take for matters to do with education, finally, like you say, for everyone to be put on the table and discussions to be held? Because now we're talking about the new funding model, that one day we woke up and there was a funding model that was there. There was no, we're told there's a means testing. No one understands it, including those who are supposed to implement it. Then we get to a point where you're saying politics, education being politicized and all that. When do we just sit down and say, guys, this is where we are, these are our problems. We've used HELB, it has issues, let's fix problems with HELB because it has worked before, we've used it for a very long time. Let's fix the problems with it and continue with it. Why does it seem as though every other time we need to come up with a fancy, swanky name just so we say we fix?
It is a shallowness in it, and when we understand the tone at the top, as I have always kept saying, fortunately or unfortunately, in Africa, key sectors such as education and health have relied on one man called the president. And that is a sad state of affairs. Even if you look at an analysis of how African presidents were judged in the past, they are judged along social sectors. What decisions did you make when you were president? You made a decision to support education. Is that the tone that you gave? That no, infrastructural development cannot come before. We cannot prioritize infrastructural development than we do to education.
I see I'm sorry, Janet, but I see a deeper overall encompassing problem here, that we will see the same problem replicated across sector, whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's infrastructure, whatever the case may be. If there is no direct will to have some of these things done, if the development agenda is not front and center, if the protection of livelihoods of people is not front and center, if making sure that the most vulnerable in society, in communities are kept. I mean, I often say that if you're not doing those things, you have no business running government. That if you're not making sure that these things are taken care of at the forefront and then deal with these other things as they come, then you have no business doing this. But until and unless that becomes a priority, we will complain and lament, for the longest time.
And
seems a reset needs to happen.
And the more, and people ask me, Janet, why do you talk politics of education? It is my understanding that we must politically profile education, because the people that make these decisions are politicians. That is a fact. If it were not for that, the constitution is very clear. Anybody that comes there would not even touch it. But when you have people that the only thing they think about is, how am I going to come back to power? How am I going to put so much in my pocket? What is in this? Even if we skip 1 year of like now, I can tell you their psychology, and you'll call me back to confirm. In 2027, just moving before we go to the elections, all this will be restored in the budget. All this will be restored in the budget, so that somebody will say, simulisema education tumerudisha. But excuse me, for 2 years when you absented this money from the sector, are you accountable for the children that fell out of the framework? Are you accountable for the poor quality of education that was delivered?
Yeah.
Are you accountable, or you just want where people are clapping for you and people are kneeling for you to cry, so that then you will restore the resources and tell people, simulisema tax nimeangusha, simulisema education nimeangusha. What is this? I mean, it is not okay. And the sooner people understand that a lot of these decisions are so much related to the political decisions that you make, the good for all of us, so that when you go into that health sector and there is no medicine, please do not see medicine, see the person that you voted for. If your child is sitting with you at home right now, don't see the school, don't go and quarrel the head teacher. You're quarreling the head teacher for why? Nobody can keep your child for free, even the head teacher, especially for those who have children in boarding schools. Can you start preparing for your children to be at home with you? Because you will not send your child to school and not accompany them with food.
Is this the
head teacher cannot feed your child from their own pocket. They also paid very little money. What do you want them to do? It is a collective problem as a country, and we have to see it for what it is. Someone is defunding education. Someone is taking us back to where we came from. Why won't we resist?
So, Janet, what's the recourse for education stakeholders like yourself, and what's the recourse for parents? Because it's a very painful subject, but we are only 3 years into, this government. We still have 2 years to go, assuming things don't change. So what's the recourse? What happens next? Or what do we need to do next?
We have written enough papers, as it were. I have even gone to court. We have done everything that we need to do. The only thing that we are now forced to do, we are forced to deal with our problems politically. Let us mobilize the people. Let us mobilize the parents. Let us sensitize the people and tell them, this is not good for us. This is not working for us. This is sabotaging our children, because it is what it is. It is sabotaging our children. You do not defund my child, then you attack me with a portion meal. For what? So that the few resources I get there, I take them back to school. Stealing from Peter to pay Paul, it is not okay. And civic education is very important. And the sad bit is, the people of my age and probably above are the people who feel very emotional about small things and things they really not need to be emotional about. That this is, we are this tribe, we are voting in this pattern. And we thank God for the Gen Z, because the reasoning of those children, let me tell you, the reasoning of those children is what will help us. And I beg parents and I tell them, you cannot educate your child all the way to the university, and when you come home, you do not listen to your child. Can you listen to your child for once? We have seen what we have done, our older generation. We have seen what we have done. And we have seen where we have led our country. Can we allow ourselves to be given a brand new reasoning by people who say, no, this is our country? Let me ask you, how do you explain that this is your money. First of all, this is your money. How do you explain that you don't know how it is being spent? How do you explain that somebody is making decisions that you don't approve? But
that's exactly what's happening.
It's unacceptable, and we have to change the status of things.
Where is your position on the political goodwill in ensuring that education in the country works? Is there any to talk about?
There is no political goodwill. If it were there, we would have seen it. If the political goodwill, how do you explain that 2 ministers stand in front of cameras and tell us there is no money? Mbadi said it. He is completely considering defunding examinations. He will not be funding examinations. Minister for Education told us that there is no money. Where did the money go to? And where is the money for doing other things? Every time people show up in State House, they're living with 6.1 billion. Every time they're living with where is money for education? Where is money for doing what you will do without people clapping for you?
Perhaps that should be the question that we start asking. Where did the money go? Because it was budget. We're talking about money that should be used right now, and that money was budgeted for in the last financial year, right? This whole process that we're going through today, that money was actually
priorities.
budgeted.
If a shilling is not looking for the vote, that shilling is not there. But as long as a shilling is being given to someone who will clap back and pay back, that money is there. Who does that? We are not going to run our country like this, because it is our country. You are only the president. Yeah, you're only the president. You don't own the country. We do. The people own the country.
These are the conversations that we do have here. It's necessary for us to have them. And I guess the questions coming in the coming days is, where did the money actually go? And we have to ask that question because it was budgeted for. And we've got, at any one time, 800,000 to 1 million students at every sector, at every level, and necessary for us to ask those thought-provoking questions. It's necessary for us to be emotional. At some point you get angry, but the question is, if you're not angry, why aren't you, about the things that we are seeing essentially falling away or ripping at the seams? Janet Ndu Okoh, thank you for being here this morning. We keep these conversations front and center because we have to, and we're grateful that you join us in them. Thank you for starting off the week in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We continue tomorrow, God willing. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and thank you for being here as we do Good Morning at 10 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Ndu Okoh. The Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, DIG, that is Gilbert Masengeli, and Eliud Kipkoech have arrived at the Central Police Station in Nairobi. Kanja had earlier today ordered for the suspension of top police officers at the Central Police Station following the death of a suspect in